Hello, this story is concerning wildlife. It's concerning a rhino.
A rhino?
Right? Yeah,
okay.
rhino. I used to live in Kenya when I was about 5 or 6 years old.
Okay.
And we were in this wildlife park in a grey Morris Minor. This rhino started chasing us. There's me and my sister in the back seat.
Right.
It was like something out of Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
We were turning around saying, "Believe it, Dad. Just put your foot down, Dad. We're in a field." Put your foot down, this rhino was chasing us.
One from Mark here in Derby. Went on holiday for our first romantic holiday to Tunisia years ago. Decided to take my girl into a petting zoo. I got a bag of food to feed the animals. A giant goat then went for me, putting its front legs over my shoulders and proceeding to headbutt me over a fence into one of the pens, covering me in the food and making my nose bleed. I got out of the pen, then the goat and all his mates attacked me again, sending me running and screaming like a girl out of the zoo, with my girlfriend rolling with laughter on the floor.
A tarantula climbed up the bottom of the bed on the sheet.
Yeah.
And it walked all the way up. It's eyeball to eyeball.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, what am I going to do when it climbs over my face? But then a miracle happened. It raised its 2 front legs and waved them around. And then it turned around and walked down the side of the sheet.
Boris Johnson been attacked by an ostrich. The former PM was enjoying a safari trip with his family when the bird leaned into his car and went oi oi and pecked his hand. In footage shared online, he quickly jerked from the ostrich. Don't dirty minds away from the ostrich, and shouted, "Oh, cripes, get hell," before driving off. And so I just set it out there. Have you been attacked by an animal? When I was about 7, says Trevor Jenkins, on holiday in Spain in the 70s, a monkey pulled my long hair. It was long because it was the 70s. I was in floods of tears. And as the family car drove out the car park, an elephant ripped off the car mirror. We got the message. Spanish animals aren't to be trusted. Jeremy, Brittany here from the United States. I was spurred by a rooster in my right foot a few years
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Because we've got plenty of things to talk to you about. India as well. You never quite know. However, never mind all that. We're going to talk about taxes as well this morning. Rachel Reeves is a big interview in the Daily Mirror this morning in which she says, "I will not raise taxes on working people." And then there's a whole load of gibberish about how she's going to raise money from some other means and that she's going to stick to the manifesto. And so despite the fact that everybody knows she's going to put some kind of tax on everybody, she's not admitting to it herself. Meanwhile, the head of the Institute for Fiscal Studies is describing her as staggering from one disaster to another. Nobody quite knows what she's going to do next, but it's almost certain not to work. One of the things she wants to do is to start lending money to people who can't afford to pay it back. Which doesn't sound like a great idea to me. The front page of the I newspaper says this: the UK to offer new bumper mortgages for £30,000 earners as Reeves sweeps away crash rules. So it means that basically if you can't afford a mortgage, she'll give you one anyway, and then you won't be able to pay it back. Does anybody remember the subprime market in 2008? Does anybody remember people getting big loans that they couldn't afford to pay back when the housing prices fell? The whole world collapsed economically. Brilliant idea from Rachel Reeves. We'll be talking as well about the scaremongering that Ed Miliband has been up to. He was in Parliament yesterday talking about how everybody should be getting their net zero cards together because he wants to offer money so that you can buy a car. Yesterday we told you all about the madness of this guttering that they wanted to put into your street so that you can put a cable down it and charge your electric car. Motorists will now be given £3,750 to switch to electric cars. That's £650 million of taxpayers' money they're going to give to other people from you so that they can buy a cheaper car. I mean, what is going on? So much else going on as well. The BMA getting it wrong on the doctor's strike. We'll be doing that. BBC in a lot more trouble. Tim Davie. I wish Ed Davie was resigning as well, by the way. Tim Davie admitting BBC failures over that Gaza film. There's more fallout from Greg Wallace. What else can we talk about? Oh, yeah, the soldiers yesterday coming to Westminster. We'll be hearing from the guys that we served today because we've got big breaking news from the military today. They are mad as hell with the government, who are continually trying to prosecute Northern Ireland veterans for simply doing their jobs, following orders and doing their duty for king and country. Absolutely ridiculous. 0344 499 1000 is the number. It's 5 minutes past 6. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. And good morning. Tuesday the 15th of July, payday for some people. Peter Blexley's here with me. Very good morning to you, Mr. Blexley.
Good morning, Governor.
Very good to see you. Lovely morning, isn't it?
It is.
I'm loving this slightly cooler weather. But I must say I'm on the hunt at the moment for some kind of a crime that's been committed, because I woke up this morning only to discover that there was no water coming out of my taps. And I don't know whether it's because I've been going on about net zero for the best part of the last 5 years and suddenly the water company have targeted me, or whether there's been some kind of massive calamity in the area, a water leak of some description. But I can't find any reason why there isn't any water.
Welcome to Great Britain in 2025, where we're denied the very basics in life.
Luckily, because we are so well staffed here at Talk, I've managed to get myself looking as if I have, in fact, had a shower, because I've had a little bit of a spritz up downstairs with the lovely makeup girl. So it's not a big problem for me, but it will be if I get home and it's still not on.
You are no less fragrant than you normally are.
Thank you very much
time
indeed.
On a Tuesday morning.
Take that as you will. But yeah, so anyway, there are going to be hosepipe bans apparently across a whole bunch of counties. I think Wiltshire's now got it, a bit of Berkshire, a bit of Sussex, I think. So the water companies continue not to be able to actually run water as a business.
Because, of course, they haven't dug any reservoirs.
No.
It's for goodness knows how
decades.
Long. Yeah, decades upon
they're going to build two. The new
decades.
government say they're going to build 2 new reservoirs, but it's going to take about 50 years or something.
Yeah. You know. But anyway, let's not worry about that, because at least shareholders of many of these foreign-owned companies that run our water companies have been well looked after for years.
And also the people who are in charge of the water companies are getting nice bonuses, even though they can't seem to do anything regarding actually selling or buying water. It's ridiculous. I've always said, and I say it every time we talk about water, I don't know how you manage to screw up a business where the stuff that you're selling falls free from the sky, and all you've got to do is capture it and deliver it to people. Yeah,
and much as we need some rain for the gardens and the farmers and all of that, rest assured, when we do get a torrent, they will pump thousands of tons of raw sewage into our rivers and seas.
They will, Yes. They can't deal with too much rain, and they can't deal with not enough rain.
Yes.
It's an absolute shambles. Let's talk about what's on the front pages this morning. Lots of stuff about Ed Miliband and net zero. So let's kick off with that. Lee Anderson from Reform was in the Houses of Parliament yesterday, because Ed Miliband, the Secretary of State for Energy and Net Zero, was supposed to be answering questions about what it is that he's up to. Let's have a look.
The statement from the Energy Secretary sounded like a desperate attempt to save his own job. But he's right, the British people do need protecting. They need protecting from the Energy Secretary, because businesses that I visit every single week say that his madcap ideas are killing growth, killing business and killing jobs. But I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt if he can answer one simple question, which he's already refused to answer. By how much will the Earth's temperature be reduced by if the UK became net zero tomorrow? Simple question.
And the answer, which he just doesn't want to accept, is this. If he just listens, the answer is this: I believe in British leadership. I believe in Britain's ability to make a difference. And the truth is, when we, as I said in my statement, when we passed the Climate Change Act, 60 countries followed. When we legislated for net zero, many other countries followed. He talks Britain down. I believe in Britain.
So that's the answer to how much will it cost. I believe in Britain. Just keep shouting it. What's wrong with these people?
And of course, it fundamentally wasn't the answer to the question that Lee Anderson asked, which was, how much would the temperature rise if we went to net zero today, tomorrow?
Which is a question I've often asked people whenever I get anybody on here, net zero zealot or otherwise. I say to them, you know, once we do hit this great target of net zero, this great sort of, you know, nirvana that we're seeking and have been seeking for years, what actually happens? Will anything happen? No, of course it won't.
Well, China won't stop digging coal out in industrial quantities and creating yet more coal-fired energy plants.
Of course they won't.
So, OK, we do our little bit, Mr. Miliband. We've set an example to the rest of the world, and the rest of the world fundamentally doesn't follow.
No. And I mean, one of the other answers that he gave when he was asked a question about what was the point of it all, he basically said, well, we were the leading country, we did it first, and then all these other countries signed, you know, agreements and all the rest of it. I mean, it's just madness. We've got Esther McVeigh now on a question to the chair, to the Deputy Speaker, asking why people like Ed Miliband come to the House of Commons if they're not going to answer any questions. Have a look.
Madam Deputy Speaker, we are elected to this House to hold the Executive to account and ask questions on behalf of our constituents. The Right Honourable Member for Doncaster North, in common with many ministers, is treating this House and our constituents with contempt by not even attempting to answer the questions that is asked of them, probably because those answers would be embarrassing to them. There is getting to be very little point asking ministers questions at the dispatch box. What can you do as Deputy Speaker to encourage ministers to actually answer the questions that are asked of them?
I thank the Honourable Lady for prior notice of that point of order. I trust and understand that she has notified the Right Honourable Member for Doncaster North. She has indeed. Ministers are responsible for their answers, not the Chair, but the point has been made and no doubt been heard, the point that's been made by the Right Honourable Member, and the Treasury front bench will no doubt relay that back.
So even in the House of Commons, there doesn't seem to be any willingness to force ministers to answer questions.
The Deputy Speaker, again, did not precisely, accurately answer Esther McVeigh's question. No. She just flumped it. And it's a very, very good point that Esther McVeigh raises.
It is. Because
really
from Keir Starmer down, every single minister of this government does not answer the questions that they're asked. Whenever he's asked a question at PMQs, he doesn't answer it. I think last week, for the first time, he actually gave a one-word answer and said no when she asked him something, when Kemi Baden asked him something. But normally speaking, it's all like, you know, I stand up for Britain, I back Britain. You know, but that's not what I asked you.
No, exactly. Lee Anderson asked a very focused, narrow question which should have elicited just a simple answer. Yeah. And it didn't. Right. You just got fluff.
Because the Office of Budget Responsibility could have told him, if he'd asked them, what the answer was. It's £800 billion. That's going to be the cost of us reaching net zero. And that's probably an estimate at the current rates without inflation.
And when we look at the very important words that Mr Anderson used, jobs, investment, growth, such like, where are they? Where are the benefits? This country's economy is on its backside.
It is.
And you only have to go down any high street to see that. You only have to visit virtually any town or city in this country to see the rampant decline that this country is in. It is deeply, deeply worrying for us all. Because this country, quite frankly, is going down the tubes. And I'm not sure that this government, well, I know this government certainly doesn't have the answer. I wonder if any in opposition who want to be in power fairly soon, whether that be in 4 years or before, I wonder if they've got the real answers that is going to make the country viable, is going to increase growth, spending of money, a growing of the economy, greater tax revenues as a result, so that governments can actually do something. And we can see brighter high streets, more shops opening, happier businesses with lower rates.
Investment, jobs and growth. Those three things that you've already just mentioned. Well, Rachel Reeves has had an idea on that front, right? She's decided it's a great idea to give people money to buy houses that they can't afford. Similarly, they want to sell them electric cars that they can't afford. So they think their definition of growth is just to borrow more money. So basically, they're going to be the biggest mortgage shake-up in a decade to boost home ownership. She's making a Mansion House speech tonight, right? Front page of the I newspaper, which I've already read out, but also business in the Telegraph. Rachel Reeves will pave the way for a new era of risky lending in a push for growth that watchdogs fear could end in more people losing their homes. Because you'll remember the 2008 crash.
Indeed.
You'll remember how it started. I remember being in America, and my sister, who was in the financial business, was saying there's an awful lot of nerves around at the moment because we've seen stories of people like there was a bus driver in Maryland in America who was given a mortgage for a house that was worth £500,000 and the bus driver's salary was about $48,000 a year. And of course what happened was the price of the house dropped, the demand for houses dropped, nobody could afford to pay the mortgage back, the house got lost, the guy lost the house, that was the end of that. And it was a trickle-down effect into every single financial market in the world.
And that story was replicated tens upon tens of thousands of times across America. It caused a huge financial crash, which really we've not properly recovered from.
Not at all.
What Rachel Reeves is doing here is she's lowering the thresholds for, if it's a couple, she's lowering the threshold from £55,000 joint income to £50,000. So you could then borrow 4.5 times your salary. 4.5 times 50,000, 225,000. Good luck trying to buy something in the south of England for 225,000. You might get a garage if you're lucky.
Yeah, if you're lucky. But don't worry, because she's also saying that she's not going to raise any more taxes on the front page of the Daily Mirror. And inside, it's quite baffling, actually, what she's trying to say. I can't work it out. If I read it to you, maybe you can make head nor tail of it, because we've got a little clip of her. Let's play the clip first. This is when she was talking about tax rises yesterday.
Well, I'm not going to start speculating or setting out plans. No chancellor would ever do that. So the things in our manifesto, they remain our commitments. And when we've got a date for the budget, then we will start working on plans for that. I've been very clear as well, and we were in our manifesto, that the fiscal rules are non-negotiable. They are what give working people security around interest rates, for example. And interest rates have come down 4 times in the last year under this Labour government because of the stability that we've managed to return to the economy.
What's she talking about?
Well, please remember that she was at a primary school yesterday, OK? Right. So maybe it was the primary school children that she was delivering her powerhouse economic speech to.
Interest rates have come down. That's what she's clinging on to.
Yes.
Nothing to do with her, that,
like that was her doing.
Right.
Now, of course, the Labour sympathetic Daily Mirror today tries to choose its words very carefully, but there's a clue here, I feel.
OK.
If you look at the very opening paragraph, right?
Yeah.
This exclusive, as they call it. Rachel Reeves says she is sticking to her promise that ordinary workers will not be clobbered by higher taxes.
Right.
What is the definition, Daily Mirror, of ordinary?
I'm going to let you into a little secret, right? That intro has been rewritten, right? I used to work at the Daily Mirror, and I've worked in many newspapers, and that started out as Rachel Reeves says she's sticking to her promise that working people will not be clobbered by higher taxes. Then they ran it past the Labour government, and they went, "She changed that because we're not really sure what we mean by that now. So can you make it ordinary workers now?" And that's what's happened. It's been rewritten.
So is somebody on £30,000 an ordinary worker? I would argue yes.
Probably.
Is somebody on £50,000 an ordinary worker?
No.
Oh, really?
No.
Really?
No, because they're going to get taxed.
Ah.
See how this works?
So they're not ordinary?
No, they're extraordinary. We're going to tax them until they are ordinary.
Right.
So, you know, if you make 50, we're going to tax you so much you wish you were only making 20.
So if they were talented, hard-working, doing their very
ambitious,
best, and earning 50, you're not ordinary.
Yeah. Here's a better one, right? Because I've also spotted a bit of a problem here, written by Lizzie Buchan, political editor, crikey. Asked who is covered by her definition of working people, do you know what she said?
Go on.
You can see what we mean by the manifesto commitments. What?
Gross.
Hey? She says no increases in income tax, national insurance or VAT on working people, and we stuck to that in the budget last year. It was a tough budget last year. We raised £40 billion worth of tax. No, they didn't. They did not raise £40 billion worth of tax.
Yeah.
I mean, just ridiculous, isn't
and then
it?
she's got her big speech to the Mansion House speech tonight.
Yeah.
So they all wear dicky bows and all that, don't they?
They do.
Do you remember you see them standing up there all in their finery, and it's very posh dinner, isn't it?
Very posh dinner. Yeah, I've never been. Have you?
No, I'm not invited tonight.
No, I don't get that one.
I blame the post office.
Yeah.
Clearly. I mean, I must have been invited.
They've stopped delivery on a Saturday now, that's why.
Yeah, I'll check the letterbox when I get home.
They can do it alternate days now, so like if you didn't get it Monday, you might get it Wednesday.
Yeah.
2 days after the event.
And if you don't get it Wednesday, well, you know, what the heck.
Doesn't matter. Rachel from Wales just says, just watching that clip you showed of Rachel Reeves, almost barfed over my cornflakes. She's absolutely deluded. She is. I mean, watching that, you can't actually believe she's the Chancellor of the Exchequer. I mean, even when you think back to people like Gordon Brown and George Osborne, you know, you might not have liked them very much, but they looked the part. Yeah. She does not look the part, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
First woman Chancellor, we might have to raise that one up.
And sounded it. But as I say, I think talking to a primary school yesterday, she probably has found her level.
Yeah. Actually, just going back to climate change for a minute, because we'll go back into that, because we had a massive show yesterday talking about this new idea of Starmer's, which is to put a gutter, basically, from your front door down to the edge of the road where you park your car if you can get a space.
Yeah.
And you can run your electric cable down that way. And, you know, what Bob's your uncle, you have a lovely new electric car charging point.
What did I just hear? Oh, yes, every cable thief in the land rubbing their hands together with glee. You know how much damage and disruption they cause to the rail network, cable thieves? Cables are valuable, especially if you've got an unscrupulous scrap dealer in your pocket.
Yeah, exactly right. Also, as we pointed out yesterday, most people who live on a street where they have to park their own car without having a dedicated space do not generally park their car in the same place every night. They generally don't get to park it right in front of their house, which is where the charge point is. Thereby, you can't charge the bleeding thing, can you?
Take your spot when you can get it.
Yeah, and also I said, can you imagine the scene? It'd be like one of those scenes from Benny Hill where you go, right, the space is free. Somebody's, you know, the guy in the grey van is driven off. So you run out, get in your car, go to drive it into the spot and realise it doesn't have any charge.
Yeah.
So it doesn't move.
Yeah.
So you can't get into it. This from Sarah. Morning to my two favourite men on talk, Sarah from Birmingham. I know that I'm 24 hours late, but thinking more about these pavement cable gutters or potholes for pavements, has anybody considered who will be liable when they inevitably cause people to fall and the world of no-win, no-fee claims takes over? Would it be the council, the company who installed the gutter, or the householder? What happens when the owner of the electric car moves home and the new owner or tenant is potentially left with being liable for any accidents? Just a thought. P.S. Please let Peter know that my mum Stella and I are very much looking forward to seeing him in January at the Makings of a Murderer. Have a good day.
Thank you very much. I can't wait to see you there.
Excellent. That's brilliant. Yeah, I mean, we'll talk some more. We've actually got on the show later today one of the guys who manufactures these gutters, so we'll get from him exactly how it all works. But it didn't sound great to me. Meanwhile, I'm going to come back with this in a minute. Let's get a voice note from Tom.
Morning, Mike. Tom here. Enjoying the show as always. Yeah, another harebrained scheme from Ed Miliband, giving taxpayers money to buy electric cars. Well, how much is a brand new electric car? Because I was reading into this morning, and the government are actually going to pick and choose which cars you can and can't buy, and that includes second-hand cars. So you're only allowed to buy brand new electric cars of their choosing. So what about the people that can't even afford a second-hand car anyway? Like myself, for example, my car costs less than £2,000. So you tell me.
My son sold his old banger car for 500 quid yesterday to a guy whose wife had just left him and taken the car with her. And he's like, he just wanted a cheap car, right? And because I said to him, just drop the price. You know, I think we paid something like 900,000 quid for it a year or so ago. I said, you know, you'll be able to sell a car to anyone if you just get the market price right. You know?
Exactly.
So, yeah, this is a total disaster. Coming up, right, we're going to take a little break because I'm going to tell you what Dale Vince thinks should happen to people who deny climate change. You won't like this one. Peter Blexy's here. We'll see you in a minute.
And the £22 billion black hole that the Labour government have trumpeted for the last 12 months has been proven by their own Office of Budget Responsibility not to exist. And even if it did, 9 billion of it, so nearly half, would have been caused by the public sector pay increases that the Labour government gave the public sector a year ago, as we just rehearsed. Anyway, no, the black hole now is entirely of their own making.
It is, yeah.
Entirely of their own making. What tends to happen, I mean, shock horror, if you say to business, right, we are now going to penalise you by increasing the minimum wage and by increasing tax on employees.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
And that's why this project has always been about fixing the foundations of our country.
Fixing the foundations of our country. It's all sound bites. You know what he was doing yesterday, Keir Starmer? He was meeting the Prime Minister of the Czech Republic, which has mysteriously apparently been renamed Czechia.
Czechia, yeah.
Czechia?
Yeah.
When did that happen?
Yeah, quite recently, because one of my boys is going on holiday.
Right.
And they're travelling around for a couple of weeks.
And this is the half of the former Czechoslovakia that's got Prague in it, right?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And they're going to Prague.
Yeah.
I suspect they'll thoroughly enjoy themselves.
I'm sure they will.
There.
I've heard good things about Prague.
Yeah, so I've been made aware of this name change. Some might say, what's in a name? If it works for the people of that nation, who am I to criticise?
Well, except the official name is still the Czech Republic, right? And this name has kind of crept into use, but I don't know who's asked for that. But of course, as you might expect, Keir Starmer's sort of clip to video that went out yesterday has the word Czechia in it. Can we see that? Should we have a look? Yeah, let's have a look.
Petter, my friend, it's very good to have you here. We're now doing all on trade, on the economy, on energy, on defence and security. Today will mark the occasion where we sign our memorandum of understanding, which signals how strong the relationship is and what our ambition is as we go forward.
So they've signed a memorandum of understanding which signals how close their relationship is and what they're going to do going forward. Sorry, what's the point of that?
What on earth?
Might as well sign a bouncing Czechia.
Exactly.
Right? Here we go. Here's a bouncing Czechia.
Yeah.
Nice to see you. Who's
what
next?
on earth is a memorandum of understanding?
You and I should sign one of these.
Yeah, all right.
Should we sign one? Bring one in, right, after the next break, and we can sign a memorandum of understanding.
OK. What does that understand? I'm here at 6 o'clock on a Tuesday morning?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, OK.
And then till 7, usually.
Yeah.
And then we'll think about what happens going forward.
OK, that I talk to you.
And then I'll call that some kind of a breakthrough.
Yeah.
Or, you know, something to do with nuclear power, apparently.
Yeah, we'll reach an agreement on newspapers, stories, conversation, water, memorandum of understanding. Yeah. Marvellous.
Unbelievable, isn't it? Anyway, so back to Labour donors. Dale Vince is in the paper today, leading Labour donor, calling for climate denial, as he calls it, to be a criminal offence because it causes incredible harm. So can you imagine your former colleagues in the Metropolitan Police and elsewhere in the land coming up and saying, all right, Sonny, you're nicked. What do you think about climate change?
Now, when it comes to Mr. Dale Vince, I have some very, very serious advice for every listener and viewer, OK? Do not listen to Dale Vince when it comes to haircuts.
Yeah.
OK?
Right.
His is catastrophic.
It is.
Please don't follow it. Do not listen to Dale...
Or clothing.
Yeah, or clothing. Do not listen to Dale Vince on how to run a football club.
No.
That's another major disaster that he's presided over.
That's not great, is it? Into the Football League and then back out again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And when it comes to his views on law and order, yes, don't listen to him.
No.
The man's a bit unhinged.
He's not an expert on the legal business, is he?
No, he really isn't. No.
I mean, you can't just make things a criminal offence.
Well,
that's what fascists do, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, I know from now on, you know, it's like that. Remember that Woody Allen film, Bananas, where the guy suddenly, unbeknownst to him, became a political dictator in South America. And he just went, you know, from now on, you know, everybody under 16 will be 16, you know, and we will strike M as a letter from the English language. It will no longer exist. You know, it's all that kind of madness, you know.
Yeah. Imagine those people whose pronouns are they, them.
Oh, God.
That would have triggered them, wouldn't it?
I know, absolutely. And incredible. Just incredible. What else have we got? Heidi Alexander on the cross-pavement gully. Let's play that again. Yeah, this is what we played yesterday. This is her explaining how great this is going to be before you start worrying about what's actually going to be the real purpose of it.
we're making £25 million available to councils so that they can provide financial support to households who want to put in a cross-pavement gully so that you can safely run the cable across the pavement.
Safely?
Yeah, OK then. So how much did you get it? 25 million?
25 million.
Just the 25 million?
25 million,
That's all right.
Anybody want a cross-pavement gully?
Can you imagine how much of the pavements are going to get dug up for this, right?
Form an orderly queue.
And somebody said to me yesterday as well, notwithstanding the fact, as you said, that somebody might nick the cabling because it's worth quite a few quid. Yeah. Apparently, if you're generally putting cabling anywhere near the ground, you have to bury it about a foot by law, supposedly. Yeah. And this is only about this deep. So how is that possible?
Well, the road that my road joins has had its pavements dug up for weeks.
Right.
They're laying some kind of cable, I think, for broadband and communications and this, that and the other. And they have been there for weeks and weeks.
Yeah.
It is clearly a mammoth kind of operation.
Yeah.
I dread to think how much it's costing. But 25 mil for the entire country to try and get cross-pavement gullies.
Yeah.
Really?
It's not.
I mean, it's really not going to happen, is it, Heidi Alexander?
And again,
Transport Secretary.
Again, it's us giving money to people who run businesses to make more money with our money.
Yeah.
Why are we paying for that?
Yeah, and whose benefit? Well, I understand if you live in a flat, how can you have an electric car?
You can't.
Right, unless the people that have built the flats, say, for example, if they're a new build, then I suppose they'll have charging bays built into it, won't they?
They won't, no. Because one of the things that's been happening is that, particularly in new builds in London, they've been told by Sadiq Khan, you can't have any space for cars because we're trying to clear the environment out. So there's no underground garage if you've got a new build block of flats.
Oh.
You're not supposed to have a car.
So no garage, no charging points?
No.
So that's a huge swathe of people written off. Terraced houses, I suppose this is what this scheme is aimed at, isn't it? If you live in a row of terraced houses, but you've pointed out all the problems about you don't bag a parking spot, do you?
You don't.
You get a parking permit, but it's not an allocated numbered spot, is it?
No, and a lot of people also live in those big houses that are separated up into maybe 2 or 3 units.
Yeah.
So if you've got 3 cars, what are you going to have, 3 gullies?
Yeah.
Eh?
2 slips, 3 gullies.
I mean, sounds like cricket. It was at Lord's yesterday.
Yeah.
Let's get a voice note from Sue.
Morning, Mike. Morning, Peter. Sue from Farncombe here, talking about net zero, a load of rubbish. Is it 2% we produce? Let's face it, India and China produce so much. It's because they're the ones that make most of the things in the world. England doesn't produce anything anymore except hot air from pathetic Labour.
So true. Sue, brilliant. Thank you very much.
On the money.
Absolutely. How about this one from Daniel in Surrey? This is great. The Labour government seems to permanently talk in riddles, churn out vague straplines and avoid answering direct questions. They think they'll get found out. The thing is, we all know they're useless and out of their depth. Excellent show as always, and I'm looking forward to seeing Peter's tour in Guildford next year. This is great. You've obviously done well on the old ticket front.
Yeah, we've done all right. Yeah, in fact, a couple of venues I got told last night are virtually sold out, so please don't hang around getting your tickets.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, it's true. They talk in riddles. They don't answer questions. They don't actually really examine anything in any great detail. It's literally like skating across the top of everything, you know, whether it's Czechia, whether it's, you know, electric cars, whether it's gullies in the pavement, whether it's, you know, net zero, whether it's bleeding, you know, road charging. Everything is just nothing.
Or memorandums of understanding.
Memorandums of understanding. We'll have one more of those for you at 6:34. Sharon Davies coming up in a moment. She's heading into Parliament today to make a bit of noise on behalf of proper women, real women, you might say, in sport. This is Talk.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On your smart speaker. On your smart TV. And on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham, 6:35. Peter Blexley here with me. Coming up very shortly, Sharon Davis is going to join us, Olympic medalist, swimmer and author of Unfair Play, the battle for women's sport. She's going to be speaking today at a new all-party parliamentary group on women's rights established by Rosie Duffield. So that will be fascinating. Joanna from Salisbury says, "Hi Mike, on gullies for cables, if the council approve them and someone with high heels breaks an ankle, the local council will be liable for damages the same as unrepairable pavements. Council tax will go up even more." Probably true. And Sean in Gloucester says, "I thought this would interest you. The eco-zealot Dale Vince is displaying the Palestine flag on his Ecotricity building in Stroud." Of course he is.
Yeah.
People's Republic of Stroud.
I'll add it to the list. Haircuts, running football clubs and flag displays.
Oh, man.
Don't follow Dale Vince, whatever you do.
No, exactly right. Mark in Selby says, "Mike and Peter, bloody hell, Mad Ed has not only been drinking the Kool-Aid by the bucket, which he made from unicorn horns and fairy wings at the cost of £800 billion, jobs in Britain's future." I mean, this is the thing. The OBR said it would cost £800 billion. And so what they've done instead is to add into that the cost of cars. We had a voice note earlier which pointed out which cars you'll be able to buy, because you won't be able to get any old electric car.
No.
But what you'll get is £3,750 to switch to an electric car. There will be a list of cars that cost under £37,000. Apparently, the government says that they will not allow Chinese-made EVs like BYDs, which are already amongst the cheapest. So they will allow you to buy a whole range of cars, including versions of the Mini Countryman E, a Citroen EC4, and a Skoda Elroq. So we're actually now subsidising people to buy Skodas.
Yeah, and I'll add another couple of motors in there for you, if I may, from this list.
Yeah.
The Fiat Grande Panda, which is at the bottom of this, is £21,000.
Right.
Right. It's got a quoted range of 199 miles. So whatever you do...
If you don't put the radio on.
Yeah, or the aircon.
Right.
Yeah, so...
And if it's not cold.
Yes.
So in a nice, with a following wind and, you know, a little bit of warm weather, you can possibly get about 150 miles out of it.
If you're lucky, Right. So do plan your journey carefully, make sure there's enough charging points along the way. and maybe if you've got a friend nearby who's got a gully on their pavement with a cable underneath it, maybe you can pop in and see them if there's a parking space available. Best for compact cool is the Renault 5. I think Renault were French last time I looked. The Renault 5 E-Tech.
Right.
150 brake horsepower, apparently.
So we're basically subsidising foreign car manufacturers.
Indeed, indeed. They do quote a Vauxhall. Is that ours anymore, Vauxhall, is it?
Well, it used to be General Motors, didn't it? American. I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, that's a Grandland Electric. Prices from £36,455 with a quoted range of 318, and then the Mini Countryman. As you've mentioned... Well.
You won't be able to get a Tesla, though, because on horrible Elon Musk makes those, they're too expensive.
Can't get them.
And you won't be able to get a Polestar either, or any of the big electric company cars from BMW, Audi or Mercedes. Well, that's all right. Maybe you could put it together with the Motability grant and get yourself an electric Rolls-Royce if things go well, you know?
Oh.
Because if you add the 3,750 discount to the Motability discount, I think you could be in for a pretty good deal.
Well, you do that. I'll stick with the Fiat Grande Panda.
Okay.
And if anybody sees me broken down on the side of the motorway because it's only got a range of 199 miles, don't stop to say hello. What do you do if you break down? Does the AA or the RAC have to come and charge you?
No, they have to come and tow it. They literally have to put it on the back of a flatbed, because there's nothing you can't. I don't think you can charge. I don't think they've got anything that manually charges an electric car in less than about 24 hours. So even if they brought a generator with them, right, which could then be plugged into your car, it might not have the right end to go in. Do you know what I mean? I'm not sure how that works. So I've only ever seen electric cars being put on flatbeds and being towed. That's if it doesn't burst into flames.
Yes.
Obviously.
Yes. And the batteries are very, very difficult to put out, according to my firefighter.
You can't put them out.
Yeah.
You can't. And a new one's 17 grand.
And they douse them, and then sometimes they reignite these batteries, apparently. They're an absolute pain.
Not very green, really, is it?
No.
Sharon Davis is here. Let's talk to her, Olympic medalist, swimmer and author of Unfair Play. She's going to speak at a meeting of the new all-party parliamentary group on women's rights. which is established by Rosie Duffield. Basically, she's going to say, I think, that British sporting groups such as tennis and weightlifting might end up in court if they don't prevent transgender women from competing. Sharon Ray, good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. Sorry, it's on the telephone. I'm running around like a headless chicken looking after my granddaughter and getting on the train.
I'm absolutely delighted you can join us. No, you haven't got much time. Tell us what's happening today. Women's Rights UK are pushing this because obviously it's the right thing to do. Tell us what the problem is.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, Rosie Duffield setting up this all-party parliamentary group. So we're going into Westminster today to hopefully talk to MPs so that they'll listen. You know, this is all about just putting women first in women's sport. We all know why we have men and women's sport. We all know why we don't put, you know, the 18-year-olds racing the 12-year-olds or put able-bodied athletes into the disabled Olympic Games. It's because we've created these categories so that it's fair. But at the moment, we have hundreds of men identifying as women and going into women's sport. And it's not just things like taekwondo and wrestling that you mentioned, you know, which is dangerous as well as actually being unfair. It's also things like school sport. I mean, I have numerous parents that come on the phone to me at this time of year saying, you know, their little girl's been running at school and there's been boys in the girls' races and none of the little girls have won anything all day. It's the message that we're giving our young girls at the moment. It's absolutely appalling. They just don't matter. And it's not fair. You know, we're allowing feelings to trump reality and facts, and that's got to stop.
Sharon, Peter Blexley here. You have been utterly heroic on this cause. Personally, I first fell in love with women's sport when Dame Mary Peters won the Olympics all those years ago.
Yeah. 72.
Yes, indeed. And many women have just been sporting heroes of mine ever since. I think the way you boiled this down to parkrun, about which you've been so vocal, was absolutely brilliant, bringing it really to a wide audience and pointing out the nonsense of it all for everyday people who want to go and do their 5K on a Saturday. I applaud you, I take my hat off to you, and I know you won't ever stop. Women owe you a huge debt.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I know people say, you know, parkrun is all a bit of fun, but actually they still have a place in the races, you know? And there are sections where you can say don't wish to say or mixed race or what, mixed sex or winners. There's so many categories in parkrun. You don't have to go into the women's category and steal their places. And these times are often used to actually go on what they call a power of 10, which is an athletics situation. And obviously athletics do protect it. So therefore it's just unfair. And the government gave parkrun £5 million to increase participation of female runners. If you're not even being able to say this is the number of female runners that are taking part because men are identifying into that category, how are you increasing female runners? I just don't get it. You know, women get 5% of the sponsorship dollar across the world. All right, we get a tiny proportion of the money that's in sport, and now we're told we're not even allowed to have fair sport. It just makes my blood boil. It really does.
I mean, one of the other problems that I know you've spoken about a lot before is that, you know, the elite levels, like, I mean, I was just at Wimbledon last week, right? The elite levels obviously protect elite women, but they don't protect women sort of further down in the category, and so there's a lot of men playing in women's tennis.
Yeah, and in golf. You know, how ridiculous to say that these elite women are worthy of fair sport, but these not slightly elite women, they're not worthy of fair sport. How can that actually stand up in the court of law that we're going to discriminate against slightly less good female athletes? You know, that doesn't make any sense. And we're talking about pathways, we're talking about juniors. So how do we get elite athletes? So we discriminate in the lower levels as well. And just because you're not the very best, it still doesn't mean that you're not deserved of fair sport. You know, there is not a single piece of scientific evidence that supports that you can remove male puberty advantage, not one.
No.
And the difference is huge between male and female performance. So totally mediocre males are being able to dominate in women's sport. And we're not talking about one or two, we are literally talking about thousands. And these are numbers that have even been identified and guaranteed by the United Nations. So it's ridiculous to say that it's only one or two. But what's even worse is that we're putting those one or two feelings of men in front of 51% of the population's right to have what men still get, which is just fair sport.
Bonkers, absolutely bonkers. Well, listen, Sharon, we wish you well. I know you're going to have a busy day, but it's a great thing you're doing. And,
thank you for all your support.
Not at all. We'll talk to you maybe after you've done it, and we'll see how you got on.
All right.
All right, Sharon, thanks very much. Appreciate it. What a great woman Sharon Davis is.
Sharon Davis.
What a champion when she was a swimmer.
Oh, a national treasure.
Yeah.
What she's doing and the abuse that she's had to suffer just for standing up for women's rights. She has been absolutely remarkable on this issue. She's clearly showing no signs of slowing down. She's a treasure. She's a national treasure for women's rights. I adore her.
She's brilliant. Let's get a voice note from Nick on Rachel Reeves.
Morning, Mike and Peter. It's Nick Moore from Loughborough. Just an observation. I don't know if either of you noticed, but in that clip of Rachel Reeves, she's got this awful forced smile on her face, so artificial. Yet only 10 days or so ago, she was inconsolably sad. Just thought that was worth pointing out.
Yeah, I think it is worth pointing out, but that's the thing. They've got this ridiculous kind of, rictus grin. Starmer does it as well. I've got a message here from somebody. Here you go. Jeff in Aberdeenshire. He says, Mike, love your show. I'm convinced that Rachel McCounts is on the happy pills. Every time we see her since the tears, she's smiling maniacally. And she is. And they've obviously been told if you smile when you're saying it, people will think you're talking absolute sense and they'll believe you more, won't they?
The communications of this government, not only with what it says, but how it says it, is absolutely appalling. This McSweeney, who's supposed to be pulling the strings...
The genius.
Yeah, the genius. I mean, really, everybody's seeing through it. The more they speak, the more they do, the longer they're in power, the worse it gets.
It does. Well, I say this every week. I come in thinking it can't get any worse, surely. And
it does.
Yeah.
Unfailingly.
This week we've got gullies, we've got free money for electric cars.
Mortgages.
We've got mortgages that you can't afford to pay back.
Yep.
This is great from Callum. He says, morning, Mike and Peter. What could our country's name change be if the Czech Republic is now Czechia? We could change it to Great Benefitia.
Yes, unfortunately, so true.
Unfortunately, as ever, with most of the very apt and clever people that listen to this show, watch it. Fantastic stuff. Coming back, what are we going to do? Let's talk about the hosepipe ban. Let's talk about, as well, the Lego story today, which apparently says that Lego is the best ever toy. Maybe a bit of Trump as well, and what he did yesterday, because some of it was quite amusing. 6:47.
Isn't it a bit more than a mistake? I mean, this is something they would have done.
I'm talking about the mistake that was made by, well, according to I've read one of the people who was involved in it as I published some of the information. I've had a look at some of the information. Obviously, I've not had the chance yet to read the whole report, but I will do. But I've seen the information so far. I mean, they did not disclose to the BBC who this child was who was the parent of this individual. That's what they didn't do. What they're not saying is that they made up what happened, but they didn't disclose that.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock. Peter Blexley's here. We're having quite a lively first hour, actually. We've already spoken to Sharon Daves. We've already got you most of the stories this morning. A couple of ones that we haven't really touched upon yet. The killer aristocrat. I mean, everybody's doing loads of stuff on this story. We haven't done much on it on this show. But obviously yesterday, found guilty. A horrible, ghastly story. Daily Mail's done acres and acres on it. Sun's got a spread on it. It's just awful, isn't it?
Constance Martin and Mark Gordon. A vile, despicable pair of human beings who will be sentenced in September for a variety of crimes, not only causing baby Victoria's death by gross negligence manslaughter, but also child cruelty that they were previously convicted of, perverting the course of justice, and one other. Let's hope they get a very, very, very stiff sentence.
Yes.
Mark Gordon served over 20 years in America for rape.
Yeah.
A dreadful,
he's a
vile
horrible
crime.
individual,
Oh, it's an absolute waste of space. They both are. They frustrated the criminal justice system for nearly 2 years over these couple of trials that they've had by delaying. They've sacked 14 barristers.
Right.
Gordon ended up representing himself. They've cost this country millions. They've got 4 kids in care. That's going to cost this country millions. They will never be able to see them, I sincerely hope, because they are violent, they are incapable, and of course they've killed a child. They are absolutely despicable, and I hope they get long jail sentences, and may they rot.
Yes, I couldn't agree with you more. Let's talk about Donald Trump, because he's also on a couple of the front pages. Here he is talking about how he's been talking on the telephone quite a bit to Vladimir Putin.
We thought we had a deal numerous times. I'd get home, I'd say, First Lady, I had the most wonderful talk with Vladimir. I think we're finished. And then I'll turn on the television, or she'll say to me one time, wow, that's strange because they just bombed a nursing home. I said, what? So we don't like that.
I mean, it's not the kind of diplomacy we're used to, but I mean, it gives me a sort of slightly wry smile that he's in charge of all this. And, you know, maybe this tariff business with Putin will work.
Mr. Trump, President Trump, is a showman.
Yeah.
There's no denying it.
Yeah.
And he's actually rather accomplished at it.
He's rather good.
He honed his skills for years on American television.
Yeah. Well, that's the
thing. It's no surprise that he's got a sense of humour, he knows how to play to the camera.
Yeah.
He's also a resolute deal maker. And it would appear that if there doesn't end up being some kind of ceasefire, truce, or end to this war in the Ukraine, then he is going to impose very punitive tariffs on Russia and those who trade closely with Russia. In other words, China.
Right. And isn't it funny how all of the detractors who were so anti-Trump at the beginning, saying he's in Putin's pocket, they've all gone a bit quiet, haven't they?
Yes, they do, because he's proven time and time again that he's trying to do what he said he was going to do, which is to bring peace around the world.
Yeah.
I think that the way he diffused the India-Pakistan situation was an absolute masterstroke. That had escalation written all over it, until Donald Trump flexed his muscles and went, oi, you two, behave.
Right.
And, of course,
and
it quelled it.
Yeah. And they did, absolutely right. Let's talk about another story. The front page of The Sun that we haven't mentioned yet. Greg Wallace, the story rumbles on, basically. The BBC apparently accused John Turode of racism, asked him to quit on fake mental health grounds. He says he thinks that the story refers to him, but he absolutely has no recollection of it, and I don't believe that it happened. Well, somebody's not telling the truth.
The authentic Greg Wallace, that's how he describes himself.
Yes.
Authentic. So many complaints proven against him yesterday. That'll be the last we see of him with any
He needs to just shut up, doesn't he?
And
Greg
go
Wallace.
away.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, do you remember that dreadful video he did not long after the investigations?
We were talking about the one where he accused sort of, middle-aged women of a certain age of having a go at him.
Talk about getting it catastrophically wrong.
I know.
The man's clearly not fit to be around people in a work environment, because his behaviour is utterly appalling.
Also, the fact that he's trying to make out that he's being victimised because he's working class. As if all working class people run around taking their trousers down at every given moment, touching up women.
Yeah.
Sorry.
The damage he has done to working class people and people that speak with a regional accent and such like is incalculable.
Yeah.
And what I would be very interested to see is one of those the matters that was found against him yesterday was about inappropriate touching or unwanted touching. Well, hello, I think that's a crime.
Yeah.
Is somebody going to report this to the police? Well, and let's see if there's a criminal investigation for that matter.
And meanwhile, the BBC are under the cosh still because Tim Davie hasn't done anything really about the way that the BBC's run. They're in trouble over that Gaza documentary, now over Greg Wallace, also just in general over the way the news treats stories about Israel. You know, I can't see how he survives through the summer, never mind the end of the year.
No, and I'd like him to take his suit and white trainers, which is a dreadful look for a man of his age, elsewhere. The BBC has been repeatedly criticised. Of course, running large organisations is very difficult, and dealing with the culture of large organisations is very difficult. Take, for example, the Met Police, where I keep hearing horror stories coming out of that organisation, absolute horror stories. It's difficult, but a culture is set by those at the top. And I think it's actually not that difficult if you are firm in your beliefs and your culture, and you do impose them upon an organisation in a kind of contactable, reachable, understandable way.
Well, it's called leadership, isn't it?
It is, isn't it?
And leadership, I'm afraid, is sadly lacking in the BBC and probably the Metropolitan Police as well. Yeah. And that's the problem. Yeah. Nobody knows what's going on.
I think leading by example is probably the best way to lead.
Totally, because I think people take that as if you're behaving like that and you're the boss, then basically I can do it as well, whether it's good or bad.
I think that cutting the corners, whether that be with finances, telling the truth or getting the job done properly, are catastrophic, and others will follow.
Yeah, definitely.
And there's a lack of courage in the BBC, a lack of courage for people to stand up and go, this is wrong, I'm not having it, what's going to be done about it?
What's going to be done about it? Exactly right. I think we've got that Greg Wallace clip. Let's have a look, remind ourselves.
Now, in the newspaper, I can see the complaints coming from a handful of middle-class women of a certain age just from Celebrity MasterChef. This isn't right. In 20 years, over 20 years of television, can you imagine how many women, female contestants on MasterChef, have made sexual remarks or sexual innuendo? Can you imagine?
Oh, really?
No, actually I can't, Greg Wallace.
No, I thought it was a food show.
There's another big question here, though, about the BBC.
Yeah.
They gave him other shows after some of these allegations had come to light.
This is the problem.
So what was the BBC doing, giving him other shows?
Yeah.
They are putting audience figures before integrity.
Pandering.
And that is utterly unforgivable. Do you know what? Going into work and doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Each and every day, you know, isn't that difficult?
No.
Treat the truth as a friend and lies as the enemy.
Right.
And then you've got a template for life, which is actually quite easy to follow.
Can somebody tell Keir Starmer that?
Yeah,
because
exactly.
he hasn't told the truth since he's been in July.
It's really
Last
easy.
July.
If that's your default position, each and every day, not only at work, but out of work, do you know what? You can have a decent life.
Yeah.
You're not going to be mired in controversy and law-breaking and inappropriate
It's funny,
things.
you don't have to remember what you said if you always tell the truth.
Yep.
You never get caught out because you're not trying to spin some load of old cobblers. Just finally, before I let you go, a story in The Sun, once again, page 17. Courtney Wright, 12-year-old pupil at a school, I think in Rugby, was going to school quite happily wearing a Union Jack dress because it was a cultural day. And she thought, I know, I'll show off a bit of my culture. But what happened to her?
And as the line at the top of this article on page 17 of The Sun says, any culture except British. Well, there you go. Once again, the poison of the political correctness, which started in 1997 and has still got such a grip on this country. All right, part of political correctness was good. It got rid of some words out of our language, rightfully so. But what then became woke, what is now diversity, equality and inclusion, polluting so many corners of health, national health, education, the police, civil service and what have you, particularly education. A girl turns up in a dress like Jerry Halliwell's and gets thrown out of school.
I know.
For it.
Unbelievable stuff. Peter Blexley, great to see you. I'm glad I managed to get you wound up just at the end there because you were far too happy during the early part of the hour. Listen, coming up, we've got loads more on electric cars, on gullies and the lies. What's going on?
I can announce this government will begin the biggest sustained increase in defence spending since the end of the Cold War. We will deliver our commitment to spend 2.5% of GDP on defence, but we will bring it forward so we reach that level in 2027.
The answer from European capitals has been as resounding as it is clear. We are in an era of rearmament to respond to the short-term urgency to act and to support Ukraine, but also to address the long-term need to take on more responsibility for our own European security.
On Saturday, we also agreed a new £2.2 billion loan for Ukraine, backed not by the British taxpayer, but by the profits from frozen Russian assets. It is my pleasure to bring from His Majesty the King a letter. He sends his best wishes and his regards, of course, but he also asked me to bear this letter and bring it to you. So can I present the letter from the King to you?
Thank you very much. Am I supposed to read it right now?
Yeah, please do.
I will do.
I've got to tell him what your reaction is, so I need to know. I need to know.
He is a great gentleman. A great, great gentleman. He said he thinks the war's going to go on for a long time, and he better not be right. Well, I just think he should be more appreciative, because this country has stuck with them through thick and thin. We've given them much more than Europe, and Europe should have given more than us, because as you know, that's right there, that's the border.
What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you are
Mr.
not
President,
strong...
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham. It's coming up to 3 minutes past 7, and it is, of course, Tuesday, the 15th of July. It's a beautiful day out there, actually. The sun is shining, the weather is looking pretty nice, and we're going to have a bit of a cool but lovely season for this rest of this week, I think. Coming up, of course, later on in the show, we'll be talking to a great many special guests, including some members of We Served. You might remember that's the organisation, the military organisation that helps people get back into work after they've left the service. They're going to be talking to us about the relaunching of that organisation, and also they're going to talk about all the business yesterday in Parliament where David Davis got up and made a very stunning defence of why the government should not be prosecuting former members of the military, of the armed forces in Northern Ireland, because they were simply doing their duty, and what he says is that what we will be doing instead is kind of bowing to the IRA and to Sinn Féin, who were trying to end up making the British Army the villains of the piece and the IRA terrorists the heroes. I don't think we should have that at all. We'll also be speaking to Michael Golden, the co-founder of Turbocharge, because yesterday and today we're still talking about these gullies that you're supposed to put your cables down to run out to the street so you can charge the electric car that the government wants to subsidise you to buy. They're willing to give you £650 million of taxpayers' money to get £3 and a bit grand, nearly £4 grand actually, off a new electric car. We'll also be talking to Dame Andrea Jenkins coming up as well, and of course we will be talking to somebody who is a rogue trader victim too. Isabel Oakeshot's joining us as well. We're going to be talking about net zero a lot this morning because Ed Miliband was up in Parliament yesterday supposedly defending his policies, which he really is finding it very, very difficult to do. Keir Starmer met with the Prime Minister of Czechia yesterday. If you don't know where that is, I'm not surprised, because I had to check it out to be honest, it is apparently the Czech Republic, which used to be known as Czechoslovakia, which has now been split into two. Nobody knew that Starmer was meeting this guy. Nobody knows why he's met him. They've signed a memorandum of agreement or something or other like that. We'll play that clip. James Heal is here as well from The Spectator. We'll get his view on all of that. Plus, Rachel Reeves tonight is going to appear at Mansion House and basically give away more free money to people who can't afford to pay it back. It's all going so well. It's brilliant, isn't it? 0344 499 1000 is the number. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Oh, yeah, and Dale Vince wants to make it illegal for you to be a critic of climate change. A climate denier, of course, is what he calls it. He wants to make it a criminal offence. So beware of the police stalking you from behind if you're out there lying in the sun enjoying it instead of covering yourself in sun cream. Let's talk to James Heal, Deputy Political Editor at The Spectator. James, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike.
I'm not sure, it's one of those days I'm not sure where to begin, really, but I suppose we should begin at the beginning with Rachel Reeves and a couple of stories today. She's at Mansion House tonight. She's going to supposedly slash the city's red tape, which is going to deregulate the city, which some people would say is an interesting decision to make, given that the reason that the regulation was put there in the first place was to stop, you know, sort of wide boys from victimising the economy. So she's going to open all that up. She's then going to offer people who make only £25,000 a year, and she's going to offer mortgages for them to buy houses that they presumably won't afford to pay for.
Yeah, and I think that really does show the difficulty Rachel Reeves is in. There's a famous line about Churchill one day at dinner saying, "Take this pudding away, it has no theme." This is a themeless pudding of a speech. I'm not really sure what she can go out there and sell. There was lots of talk beforehand about her potentially changing the rules on cash ISAs. That was then got rid of because there was a backlash from banks and opposition in terms of the building society. So what has she got to say? And the truth is that she's going to have a very awkward reception tonight. Look, it's a well-heeled audience. They'll all be very nice and applaud her. But the danger is, I think, Mike, is that she has the same repeat as the CBI speech that she gave in November, when she proudly told the audience that, you know, she wasn't going to be coming back for more tax rises, and she clearly expected applause, and she didn't get any of that because no one believed it. And that's the key point here, is that it's about credibility. And frankly, among much of the business community, Reeves has very little credibility.
She really doesn't. And I mean, to make matters worse, she's in the Daily Mirror today, exclusive, it says on the front, "I won't raise your taxes." It's a very confusing piece. I don't know whether you've had a chance to read it, in which she kind of doesn't really say who she means by working people. You know, they struggled to define working people at the beginning of this, didn't they, when they started campaigning? And it turned out that they probably meant public sector workers. I mean, Keir Starmer sort of mumbled on about, you know, it's people that work but they don't have any savings, and nobody really quite knew what he meant. I see they've now sort of started using the phrase ordinary workers because they want to tax people. They just don't want to tax people who don't make that much money.
I mean, I read that article, that interview, and I mean, she says that people who pay national insurance, income tax and VAT are working people, and then goes on at the end of a very long answer to say, I don't think I need to give more definition than that. And of course, this comes after her deputies yesterday said it was anyone who had a pay slip, and it comes after her cabinet colleague, the Transport Secretary, said on Sunday that it was people on modest incomes. So, I mean, that's basically everyone under the sun, isn't it? I mean, the truth is that they just don't want to be seen as, you know, taxing aspiration. But of course, we all have different definitions of that. And so the reality is, I think taxes will go up on some people. I mean, Capital Economics estimates that it's going to be about 20 billion worth of tax rises in the autumn. But of course, they want to have this silly game dancing around, become up with this formulation of working people. The truth is, we're all working people, and even those who are on pretty good incomes definitely consider themselves hardworking.
Well, exactly right. And so, you know, they just can't really surely expect to be taken seriously by either the city or Mansion House or any sort of credible think tank or just members of the public in general. I mean, the head of the Institute of Fiscal Studies has described Rachel Reeves as sort of staggering from one disaster to another, which is pretty much what's going on.
Completely. And I think what's so striking, Mike, is that, you know, we've all had difficult chances in the past and sort of can remember times when ministers have, you know, been up against it. But what's so jarring about Reeves' time at the Treasury is that she seems to have unpicked a lot of her initial decisions. So non-DOMS rules, there's reports about her trying to go back on that. winter fuel, obviously, most notably. They're now trying to play nice with the city, but that's what sort of chop and change. And so soon in the government with a massive majority, there isn't that sense of a sort of 5-year plan. You know, under, say, for instance, Thatcher, taxes arose originally, and then they went down over a 5-10 year period. There isn't that sense of kind of stewardship of the economy, and that's why a lot of business are feeling quite jittery right now.
Yeah, exactly right. Let's have a look at what she actually said yesterday when she was asked about tax rises. See if this gives us any clues.
Well, I'm not going to start speculating or setting out plans. No Chancellor would ever do that. So the things in our manifesto, they remain our commitments. And when we've got a date for the budget, then we will start working on plans for that. I've been very clear as well, and we were in our manifesto, that the fiscal rules are non-negotiable. They are what give working people security around interest rates, for example. And interest rates have come down 4 times in the last year under this Labour government because of the stability that we've managed to return to the economy.
Frank from Bromley says, Mike, I think Rachel from Accounts is starting to sound a bit like Norman Wisdom. Just an observation.
For me, it was... Do you remember when Gordon Brown got YouTube and suddenly he had to be remembered every 10 seconds, he had to smile?
Yes.
So that gritty smile,
He used to that really weird smile, yeah.
Yeah, I think that was watching that, you know, there's no tears here, keep on smiling, you know, that sort of rictus grin was coming across there. She was talking about how wonderful everything was. And I find it really quite extraordinary that, you know, the government continues to take the credit for these kind of 4 interest rate cuts, etc., while also somehow suggesting that, for instance, back-to-back GDP contractions have nothing to do with them.
No, exactly right. And I mean, it was Andrew Bailey just the other day, was it not, who said, look, it looks as though there's a real pressure on jobs and we're probably going to have to lower interest rates again. And in fact, it was nothing to do with the government's, you know, policies, apart from the fact that government policies have made the economy worse. So the fact that they can just keep repeating this nonsense that, you know, because we've stabilised the economy, interest rates have come down. No, you haven't stabilised the economy. That's why they keep lowering them.
Yeah, precisely. And of course, this is a worldwide monetary phenomenon as well. And, you know, I mean, I very much think that talk there about security, giving businesses security, is very much not what they're seeing in the city. And, you know, as a result of the national insurance rise, not what small businesses and Federation of Small Businesses are saying across the country.
Exactly right. And then this other story about the business of risky lending. You know, this looks to me like a recipe for disaster, where they're going to change the threshold for you know, how much more of a mortgage you can borrow, so that a couple can get 50,000, as long as they've got earnings of 50,000, so £25,000 each effectively, will get them a mortgage of around about 250,000. As Peter Blexley said, you're not going to get much in the southeast of England for that. But I mean, this has a sort of slight smell of subprime mortgage lending to me.
Well, yes, it does. And of course, this is the difficult thing about this speech tomorrow, is how far is Reeves prepared to go in liberalising this stuff without actually storing out further risk. And I noticed, for instance, that Jeremy Hunt made a huge thing about city regulation when he was Chancellor, the so-called Edinburgh reforms. I'm not sure how much low-hanging fruit there is left. I'd also make the point that, you know, if Reeves wants to make it easier to buy, she could, for instance, pick up the phone and talk to her Mayor of London colleague, Sadiq Khan. Only 4,000 new homes built this year thus far for a city of 9 million people. So, I mean, yes, you can talk about the demand side and about trying to make it easy to buy, but it's also about the supply side, making sure that you can build new homes, not just sort of allowing cheap mortgages, which, as you say, Mike, are ones filled with risk.
Exactly right. And meanwhile, back to net zero. I mean, we had an amazing show yesterday when we asked people about this Keir Starmer idea of giving money to councils, £25 million to councils, to help build these gullies, so you could run a cable from your house to the edge of the curb, thereby charging your electric car. Slight problem being, of course, that unless your car happens to be in that particular spot, you won't be able to charge it because it will be parked somewhere else, because you can't always park outside your own house if you're lucky enough to have a road in which there isn't a double yellow line. I mean, it's been riddled with so many idiotic things. Now we find out that motorists are going to be given £3,750 to switch to buying an electric car. 650 million more pounds of our money so that you can buy a car that I'm subsidising.
Yeah, and I think that that's going to go down pretty badly with motorists. And I think that, you know, I'm really interested to see if fuel duty, which of course was frozen for the last 14 years under the last government, is going to be risen at some point. It's really striking, as you say there, sort of Dale Vince, someone who's very keen to make up his eco-credentials. I interviewed him earlier this year. He was talking about the influence he has with Labour MPs. So I expect this is very much a portent of things to come. And we can expect similar scenes. And I just wonder about sort of the laying the gullies, you know, whether they can run through some of the potholes of our broken and unloved council streets.
Yeah. But it's this kind of randomness of the government that I think people are starting to notice. You know, there's sort of one weird announcement after another. I mean, yesterday, have a look at this. Starmer meets the Czechia Prime Minister. I mean, to be honest, I had to look up where Czechia was because I didn't realise they'd changed the name of the Czech Republic. But I don't understand what this is about. Maybe you can help me. Let's have a look.
Petter, my friend, it's very good to have you here. We're now doing all on trade, on the economy, on energy, on defence and security. Today will mark the occasion where we sign our memorandum of understanding, which signals how strong the relationship is and what our ambition is as we go forward.
So we've signed a memorandum of understanding which signals how close our cooperation is and how we're going to go forward. What does it mean?
Well, I think there's a few things which any sensible government would do there. You know, it's good to have about small nuclear reactors. It's right that this government is doing the biggest investment in 50 years in that. But as you say, I mean, it's a lot of hype, and I think really the centrepiece of this government on the world stage is about saying that we're back in Europe. Now, I think there's a fair criticism to push back on that and say we never actually went away. And you know, it's not like we had particularly bad relations with the Czech Republic or Czech, as you say. So I think that.
But what are they actually cooperating on, though? It's not clear.
Well, I think some of the nuclear relations in terms of sort of energy sharing and information sharing. But as you say, Mike, I'm not sure whether it needs a full memorandum of understanding for that. No. And it doesn't really seem that much different.
I mean, I'm sorry, it just looks like a lot of old cobblers to me. You know, they've signed a couple of bits of paper which mean nothing at all, doesn't it? I mean, that's what it looks like.
Well, I'm not across completely the entire details of the memorandum, but
no, because they didn't issue any press releases on it. The point is that if they had anything to say, you know what they're like. I mean, if there was suddenly a deal in the pipeline, if it was suddenly like, you know, we're going to be building nuclear reactors with Czechia in, you know, the West Country, that would be one thing. But they're not doing. I don't think they're doing anything.
Well, I think it's very much Keir Starmer's attempt to try and show that we're back with Europe and saying, like, you know, we had the French agreement last week in terms of the nuclear sharing of both civil and military capabilities. And I think there's going to be more talk about sort of what's happening with Germany as well, that Merz has been elected. But you're right. I mean, really, this is just an attempt to kind of show some good news stories. And foreign affairs is the easiest way to do that because the Prime Minister looks prime ministerial. He gets to sign these bits of paper. But as you say, Michael, the evidence I've seen, I don't think it's going to be a huge step forward in Anglia-Czechia relations.
To be honest, I'd rather you spent some time trying to fix the country that he actually is supposed to be running, as opposed to shaking hands with these strange and unusual prime ministers from all over the, you know, Eastern Europe that nobody's ever heard of. You know, seems, you know, call me old-fashioned. Anyway, listen, James, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. James, the Deputy Political Editor at The Spectator. I know that that's not, you know, the politically correct way to talk about Czechia, but, you know, I don't know what are we doing with them? What's the point? Coming up, we're going to be speaking to one of the founders of a company that puts these gullies in, right? So I still want your stories on those. We've got plenty of them coming in. Morning, Mike, says Mark in West Sussex. My Volvo V70 has a range of 700+ miles with a full tank of diesel. Stale mints and mad Ed Millivolt can stick their climate change. Yeah, absolutely right. Tell your viewers raid the subsidy for gullies, says Stevie. It's only for the wealthy who have big detached houses that can afford the electric cars. Well, I mean, it's only for people who have actually got access to a street where they can park their car, if they're lucky, without being absolutely done over on the fines for actually parking in the wrong place. Ray from Huntingdon says, when I was younger, I represented the RAF at high jump. If I'd had identified as a woman, I would have been in the Olympics and would have held the world record. There is such a gap between men and women. It is obvious. We spoke to Sharon Davis in the last hour, and Zorina says Sharon Davis could teach our politicians a thing or two. She is a hero. Coming up next, though, we're going to go down and speak to our man, where are we going to speak to next? Andrew Griffiths, that's right, Shadow Business and Trade Secretary down in Westminster. This is Talk.
whether it's funded by national government or local government, it's all taxpayers' money. Government doesn't have any money of its own. It's all taxpayers' money that's been raised from the productivity of people in the private sector who go out and create jobs, create activity, and create wealth for the country. And the people that are being hit time and time again. But you're absolutely right. The Doge unit has been looking at this, and Kent, I think it's the first council where we've started to publish some figures, and there's really quite extraordinary things that money's being spent on. Crazy golf, circus trips, Amazon vouchers, and each individual thing might sound like a small item, but it all adds up.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham. This, of course, is the home of common sense. Neil says, how much money has Starmer promised Czechia? Well, it's a good question. The Czechia's in the post. I could do this all day. Peter, got a voice note.
Good morning, Mike and Peter. My wife has just texted me a memorandum to bring some milk home, get some bread, and don't make a noise when I come in.
A memorandum of understanding. It's what we all need. It's what Keir Starmer signed with the Prime Minister of Czechia, who nobody's ever heard of. I'd never heard of him until yesterday. I think his name's Peter as well, funnily enough. It's just bizarre, isn't it, what this government is doing to try and distract you. It's like they've got that kind of shiny, thing that they show magpies to just try and distract you. Look at this over here. Look, I'm signing a memorandum of understanding, looking forward to, things that we're going to do in the future. OK, then. What about fixing the state of the economy, which is absolutely horrendous? Let's talk to Andrew Griffiths MP, Shadow Business and Trade Secretary. Andrew, very good morning to you.
Good morning. It's good to be home here on the home of common sense.
Yes, absolutely right. What about this sort of distraction technique that the Labour government seems to be playing at now? They've got one ludicrous suggestion after another. Yesterday it was gullies so that you can the council can get 25 million quid to put a gully from your front door out to the road so you can plug in the electric car that you don't really want and you haven't got and you really can't be bothered with. Today we've got Ed Miliband promising in the Times £3,750 of a grant for people to buy electric cars that they don't particularly want, but only certain electric cars. And then yesterday Keir Starmer meets up with the Prime Minister of Czechia, which I didn't even know was now called Czechia, to be honest.
Well, if I was doing such a fist of running the economy as this bunch, I'd probably want these series of distractions. And signing with other countries is one thing, but it should be of great concern when the government is spending hard-pressed taxpayers' money, not on helping everybody, but on trying to force people into cars that they don't want, but Ed Miliband and Greta want them to drive. They've ruined our British car industry, made it very hard for them to compete through ruinously high energy costs. And now in another intervention, rather than fix the first problem they've caused, in another intervention they can use taxpayers' money to come up with a select group of cars that are approved by Ed and his green environmentalist friends.
Yeah, exactly right. And meanwhile, we've got the Chancellor of the Exchequer tonight at Mansion House making a speech which is likely to deregulate the city. I don't know what you think of that, but I assume that there was a reason the regulations were put in the first place. And secondly, she's going to make it clear that she wants to lend money to people at high risk, possibly, for mortgages that they may not be able to afford.
Well, in truth, I'm a big fan of deregulating the city. Like so many areas of our economy, it's far too regulated. The regulators simply seem to drive out all risk, the good risk as well as the bad risk. And who ends up paying the price? Ordinary consumers who can't get a mortgage because the computer says no, but the computer's been programmed by risk-averse regulators in the first place. There's more compliance officers than there are people who are actually creating the wealth that our country depends on. So a bit of deregulation, if it was true, would be a good thing, and that's something that the former Chancellor and I said in Train a number of years ago. But at the same token, she is driving wealth creators abroad, tying up British business with the ruinous unemployment rights bill that they're pushing through Parliament right now. And we're all paying higher interest rates because she's been on such a borrowing spree that the gilt markets, the people that lend governments money, are demanding quite understandably higher interest rates. So you're going to end up, if you're trying to get a mortgage, you're not going to benefit because she's changed the rules. You're going to be paying higher stamp duty to put money in Starmer and Reeves's pocket so that they can then spend it for you, and you're going to be paying higher interest rates because the government's been on a borrowing spree and seems completely unable to balance its own books.
Yeah, and that is the problem, isn't it? Because, I mean, Rachel Reeves continually refers to how she's not going to put up taxes for working people. She continues to refuse to actually identify what she means by working people. My belief now is that she means people who earn up to a certain amount of money, because other people who earn over that amount of money are going to be taxed.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you can't keep spending other people's money. And one of the things she should do, if she was serious about growth, serious about helping the UK economy today, is make clear that if there are any more holes in her own books, and this is someone whose numbers have never added up for more than 6 months at a time, in future it will be spending reductions, and there's plenty of waste that we all know in government spending, rather than tax rises. That will avoid another summer of uncertainty. She caused one a year ago. She's now causing another because everyone, instead of spending or getting on or hiring people, is spending another summer worrying what is coming up in the Chancellor's budget next. Where else is the axe tax going to fall?
Yeah. Well, your guess is as good as mine, but it's not going to be great and it's not going to be pretty. Andrew, thank you very much indeed, Shadow Business and Trade Secretary. A bit of breaking news for you. Thames Water has said that it's slumped to a 1.65 billion annual pre-tax loss from profits of 157 million the previous year. And so its debt mounted increased to 16.8 billion. So last year they made 157 million, right? That's not a bad profit, is it? I mean, we'd all be pretty happy with that. And somehow they made that turn into a 1.65 billion annual loss. That's quite an achievement. Once again, you know, this stuff falls from the sky for free. You've got to just collect it, pass it on, and make sure that the bad water gets taken away. But Thames Water can't actually make a profit of 157 million work in their favour. What's going on with them? By the way, they finally admitted that there's some kind of water problem in the part of London where I live, and they've put out a statement on one of their websites. But how about this, right? This is what's wrong with this country, right? While we complete the repair to a burst pipe, we will be adding water back into our pipes using tankers, so as many customers as possible can turn on their taps again. How about this? This is my favourite sentence. Tankers are large vehicles filled with water which you may parked in your area over the next couple of hours. What's that over there, Daddy? Yeah, that's a tanker. No, I know that. I'm talking about the 5 people from Thames Water standing around doing nothing. Goodness me. A tanker is a large vehicle filled with water. That's the kind of information you want, really, isn't it? Got any other definitions? You know, a tap is a metal thing that water comes out of, normally, unless it's run by Thames Water. Anyway, never mind. That's enough about me. Let's talk to John Mayer, former BBC producer and author of Is the BBC in Peril? I think you might have to add a couple of extra chapters, John, to the book, because I think peril has long passed, has it not?
There's a new book, Mark, so you don't have to. Good morning, we meet again.
Yes.
There's a new book coming out in September about possibly the end of the licence fee, which is available on Amazon. Now look, the BBC has had a horrible Monday, hasn't it? I mean, if you were
Annus Horribilis, isn't it, for the BBC this year?
It's weak horribilis. If you were crisis managing for them and you knew the Greg Wallace report was coming along on that Monday, would you also put out the report on the Gaza documentary? I mean, this is madness. And then this is followed by the annual report today, which has got salaries in it, and you guys will jump up and down about so and so getting so and so and so. You know, what is going on? Now bear with me. I think Tim Davie needs a willy. Now don't get too excited about that.
I know your reference. It's all right. Carry on.
When Margaret Thatcher was Prime Minister, she had Willie Whitelaw, who did a clearing up for her. Tim Davie doesn't have a Willie. You know, all Director Generals have a flat catcher, somebody who catches the flat long before it gets to him. He doesn't have somebody like that. Tim is not a journalist. Peter Johnson, who produced the report yesterday, is a management consultant. For God's sake, you know, how about putting some journalists and programme makers at the top of the BBC?
Hasn't he got Samir Shah for a bit of that now?
Well, Samir Shah's the chairman, though. Samir Shah is above him. You know, he reports to Samir Shah, not the other way around. Samir Shah is not a flak catcher, so Samir Shah gets the flak.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Samir Shah takes some of the heat away from him, though, doesn't he?
No, I don't think he does. And I don't think. And, you know, Tim doesn't appear in public. He should appear in public as Director General, as head of the organisation, and say, "Look, we're very sorry about this. We did it wrong. We did that. We did." You know, that's what the boss of a broadcaster.
Yeah, but he does. I mean, he's always sitting ahead of he's always sitting at some parliamentary committee or other. I mean, last time we saw him, he was telling us how they'd asked very nicely if Hugh Edwards would mind giving back some of his money, and so far he hadn't given it back. And then when he was asked what are you going to do if he doesn't, he didn't really have an answer.
But he never does press conferences, never talks to hacks like you and I, Mike. You know, he's a bit of quizzing. You know, that's his job. Yeah. I think he's skating on a very thin ice at the moment.
I think he's looking closer to the end than he's ever looked this week.
Yeah. I'm afraid there's an element of truth to that. Tim is a friend, and he's done a very good job. But you know, I think too many mistakes, too many things have ended up at his doorstep, and that's because he doesn't have a flat catcher amongst other. And also, the systems are all there, but who's putting the system into operation? You know, I think the Gaza report. Ridiculous.
But that's ridiculous. Furness woman was sitting on the BBC yesterday morning. This is the woman who supposedly is in charge of news at the BBC, who said that yes, they should have done better in checking. I mean, as soon as I saw that documentary coming out, I thought the first question any journalist would ask is, "Who's the kid? You know, are you sure he hasn't got any connections to Hamas? Let's just check that out, shall we?" And apparently they asked the production company, and they never got any answers. Well, what kind of journalism is that?
If you've got a contract that's worth, like, let's say, £250,000, and it's put in jeopardy if you give the wrong answer, what would you do? Of course you wouldn't. Now at least Deborah put her head above the parapet yesterday. She hasn't been recently. You know, she's lining up to take over from Tim Davie, her and a few others. Yeah. So they're all on manoeuvres at the moment to see, you know, who can get there. But you know, look. This has been a disaster, an absolute disaster for the BBC. And why doesn't anybody realise they've got endless people in editorial policy, in PR, in press. What are they doing? Are they
None of it works, does it? None of it works. No. Because if they can't get an answer, if there's nobody inside a structure like the BBC who can get an answer, can't get an answer from a production company about who this boy that we're just watching now is and which connections does he have to Hamas, and they don't get an answer, that's just not acceptable, is it?
No, but then they should have cancelled the contract. But on the other hand, you know, the other Gaza documentary...
Well, they could have just taken him out of the documentary and used other kids. I mean, they're apparently talking about reshooting it now and actually re-editing it to take him out and leave the other kids in.
Well, you know, I mean, they're faced with the problem with MasterChef. What do they do?
Yeah.
How do they take Greg Wallace out? Is there an AI way of taking Greg Wallace out of MasterChef?
Well, you can't,
and maybe
can you?
Now John Turode as well.
No, I mean, but John Turode, it looks as though he was asked to resign, and then was actually asked to say that he was resigning because of mental health. And he's saying, well, you know, I'm sorry, I don't remember it happening that way, but there's clearly, I don't think they can run MasterChef anymore. How can they run it?
Well, I mean, they're in a dilemma. Well, I'll tell you what I would do if I was Director General. I'd put MasterChef on iPlayer. I'd make a new series of MasterChef 25, put that out on BBC One and terrestrial, and go from there. But
who would you have in it, though? But who would you have in it?
Well, you'd probably have John Turode. You'd probably have the woman from The Guardian as well. You certainly
that woman
have
from
Greg
The
Wallace.
Guardian. Well, you obviously don't have Greg Wallace. Well, they fired Greg Wallace. I mean, you're not, you know, you have to do better than that, I'm afraid, John.
Well, you know, we've all got autism, haven't we, Mike? You know,
but unfortunately, most people who have autism, it doesn't make them take their trousers off and run around naked.
It doesn't, and wear no underpants.
Yeah,
this is a new definition. But
apparently, nobody at the BBC thought that was unusual, though. So I mean, that tells you a lot, doesn't it?
But the worst thing about all of that was the young woman who went to Banijay and said this had happened.
Yeah.
They said, at least you're over 16, you haven't been saddled.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, get a grip, Tim. Either get a grip or get out.
Yeah.
In my view, this week, you know, seriously. And you've got today all of the salaries coming out and the annual report. This is a national broadcaster. You know, they need to do something.
It's a shambles, absolute shambles. John, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. John Mayer. And once again, another man who's come around. So he used to come on this show and argue with me all the time. He's now accepted that I was right all along. The BBC is a complete and utter busted flush, completely useless. Tim Davie should go, and he should go sooner rather than later. Let's have a look at what Lisa Nandy has to say about resignations.
Look, I asked the board directly why nobody had resigned or been fired over the series of failures that we've seen recently. What I've had in response is an action plan that is aimed at addressing the reasons why some of these failures happened and making sure that they can never happen again. That's what I'm really interested in, accountability and action, which has been too slow in coming. I think the BBC leadership has recognised that, but now appears to be happening. There are a series of measures that the BBC are taking now, not waiting for the outcomes of reviews, which I hope will restore public confidence in the BBC.
I'll give you an action plan, right? 1, sack Tim Davie. 2, don't give money to anyone who's a member of Hamas or related to anyone who's a member of Hamas. 3, don't let people who present shows run around without their trousers on. That's 3 for starters. Maybe you could come up with a few other suggestions for the BBC as to what they should do. Let's get a voice note from Pete.
Since when do people like Dopey Dale get a say in what goes on with the law? It's absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, I think climate change is happening, but it's natural. I mean, we live on a living planet. Anyone who thinks that the climate's going to be static for the next million years is really, really naive.
Yeah. It's got to be said. Pete on Dale Vinster. How about this from Tim in Suffolk? He says, where I live, a 1970s old council estate, can you ask the gully man if I can have a gully 50 metres long, as that's the closest car parking space to my house? And Peter in Suffolk says this, 2 in Suffolk in a row. I had some clown trying to sell me solar panels the other week. He told me I can have free electricity. I said, but what about the cost of the panels? He said they would pay for themselves in 10 to 15 years. So in other words, I'm paying for 10 or 15 years worth of power up front. I'm 72. Great to know it's free when I get to be 87. Yeah, brilliant. Unbelievable. 7:36 coming up. Philip Ingram joins us. We'll have some more from Donald Trump on Putin.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:38. I'm Mike Graham. Morning, Mike. Phil in Coventry here. Listen, a bit worried about everyone being made to have the same electric car. How on earth will you find it in a car park if they're all the same? Well, that's a good point. Also, I don't want to be told by the government what car to buy. You can have this one. We'll give you 3,750 quid off. You can't have that one, though, because it's Chinese. I don't understand. One from Lorraine. Tim Davies paid a huge salary to ensure that due diligence, transparency, moral and appropriate behaviour comes from the BBC. Too many mistakes. Hugh Edwards, Greg Wallace, Gary Lineker, Violent, Jeremy Bowen, to mention a few, are all under his watch. Lisa Nanny needs to grow a backbone, either removing its subscription or demanding his resignation. He is accountable, and I'm sick of hearing word salad from inept Labour ministers. I think you're absolutely right, Lorraine. I don't see how Tim Davies is still employed. He really shouldn't be. He should be fired today. Simple as that. Philip Ingram's here, MBE, former senior military intelligence officer. Philip, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike.
Interesting day yesterday in the White House. Donald Trump appears to have kind of changed his view of what's going on in Ukraine and in the conflict with Russia. Let's have a look at what he said about how disappointed he is with Vladimir Putin.
I am very disappointed with President Putin, and I thought he was somebody that meant what he said, and He'll talk so beautifully and then he'll bomb people at night. We don't like that.
I mean, it's very stark and straightforward, but, you know, he's right, isn't he?
He's completely right. And what was interesting was earlier he had said that he would talk to Vladimir Putin on the telephone, go home and tell the First Lady, and she'd say, but he's just bombed another city. And it was the First Lady's influence that he tried to suggest has helped him change his mind. This is quite significant if his mind stays changed.
Yes. Well, I suppose, I mean, he's now threatening tariffs, and he's also threatening secondary tariffs on China and India and anybody else that trades with Russia in any way, shape or form. I mean, I have to say, no matter what he does tend to get there in the end, doesn't he, Donald Trump?
He does, but it's cost thousands of Ukrainian lives and Russian lives by not getting there and believing that the Russians would do some form of peace deal. He's still left it open for a deal. He's given 50 days before these tariffs come in. But I think the diplomacy that's gone on from Mark Rutte, we saw there the NATO Secretary General who was in Washington yesterday with Donald Trump, and diplomacy that's gone on from the likes of Francois Macron and our own Prime Minister Keir Starmer in smoothing Donald Trump over, have brought him round, and NATO has helped with increasing its expenditure on defence to 5%
I mean,
of GDP.
a lot of people. Yeah, I was watching some analysis yesterday, and a lot of people were saying the fact is that they've kind of persuaded Donald Trump partially because they've managed to say this is a business deal now. You know, he's selling the weapons to Ukraine. He's not donating them, so he can tell the American public that, you know, one, we're not getting involved, boots on the ground, but also two, we're not supplying them with weapons which we're paying for. They're paying for them.
Well, exactly. Europe and the UK is paying for US weapons to go to Ukraine, and that's something where Donald Trump thinks he's got the deal done. I think it's taken a little bit of time for world leaders to work out how to work Donald Trump. There's one world leader that knew from the very outset how to work Donald Trump, and that was Vladimir Putin. But it seems as if he has got it wrong and not adapted as Trump has been changing. So that can only be good for Ukraine. It is good for Europe because he's forced Europe to step up its defence expenditure and increase its defence capability, given the fact that there's a massive threat from Vladimir Putin, and that will remain for many years to come, and what's going on around the world as well.
And so, do you think the tariffs will have an effect on Putin? I mean, some people seem to think that he's a law unto himself now. Will he pay any attention to Trump?
Well, I don't think there's that much trade between Russia and the United States, so the tariffs against Russia is not going to affect things. But
for the secondary ones, I mean.
The threat for the secondary tariffs against China and India will put significant pressure on them. And if they drop their amount of trade with Russia because of the threat of those tariffs, then the Russian economy is not in a good position at the minute, and that's an understatement. This will impact it dramatically. So we have to see what plays out from what China is going to do and what India is going to do. There have been no real statements from their leaders recently, but of equal interest. The Russians seem to be getting a little bit scared because Putin's representative in the United States, Kirill Dmitriev, turned around and called for constructive dialogue between Moscow and Washington and wrote that talks would be more useful than pressure rhetoric, and decorated his social media post that he put this out on with peace-themed emojis. So that's suggesting that Moscow is slightly more concerned than they're going to say publicly.
And again, I mean, nobody's really talked about what the peace terms would be, but everybody used to say if there is to be a peace deal, Ukraine is going to have to give up some of their land.
Well, the Russians have put out their terms for peace, and those include being given all of the territory that they've failed to capture over the last 3 years, for President Zelensky's government to be dissolved and new elections that Russia can influence be called, that there's no international interference to rearm, re-equip and rebuild Ukraine. Completely unacceptable. President Zelensky has put his requirements on the table, and he's recognised that he can't take the territory back that Russia has already captured by force, but has said that that can be brought back diplomatically at some stage in the future. So we know roughly what both sides are saying. They're just not on the same piece of paper, and it's finding something to get both sides on the same piece of paper to allow real negotiations to start. And that's where Putin has been digging himself in for a lot longer. Zelensky has been cooperative. Putin, I don't think, is going to move any closer to wanting the peace negotiations.
Interesting. Philip, good to talk to you. Philip Ingram, MBE there. Thanks very much indeed, former senior military intelligence officer. Trump was also talking about the US economy yesterday, where he had a faith luncheon. Check this out.
The alternative is one of two things. You can either get all these things and make the economy strong, or you're going to literally have perhaps a depression where you people so rich, so beautiful, so nice to look at will be totally busted. And let's see how long your wife stays with you. You're beautiful. She'll stay with you for about 3 weeks and she'll say, darling, I can't take it anymore. I can't take it anymore, darling. I'm leaving you. I said to one guy, he's a very, very unattractive man, but he's smart and he's rich. And I said, you better hope we get this thing passed because your wife will be gone within about 2 minutes.
Yeah. He's really having a great time, isn't he? Absolutely incredible. Let's get a voice note from Ben.
Good morning, Mike. This is Ben in Prague. I've just seen you semi-slating my home country. How dare you? Czechia runs perfectly fine. It's actually probably one of the best run countries in Europe. We don't have hardly any immigration problems. As far as I'm aware, the economy works well. All of the infrastructure is perfectly fine. The healthcare, low crime, very low unemployment. If that absolute bonkers of a country back over there wants to work with Czechia, they could do far worse. My advice to the Czech government is don't get involved with Britain.
Well, I was going to say, Ben, if Czechia is running so well, what the hell's he doing here? Because you won't learn anything from Keir Starmer. A memorandum of understanding he's just signed with him. So you better watch out, because before you know it, maybe they'll be signing a deal to ship a load of migrants over to you. And that will be the third country. And that will be the end of your happy time in Czechia, I have to say. 7:47, appreciate it. This is Talk.
face, swinging fines of sort of £15,000 per vehicle that they fall short by. So, you've got to ask yourself if these huge incentives and sticks, punishments are not moving the EV market. There's something wrong with the product. The motorists simply do not want to buy it. And, Heidi Alexander hit on one of the reasons. They're impractical. And there's also the range worry.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to 10 minutes to 8. We're here, of course, all the way through until 10 o'clock, of course. It is July the 15th, Tuesday. Lots of you getting in touch. Lots of you got things to say about the problem with the world of green energy and the world of hosepipe bans. Janice says this: just wait until the hosepipe ban reaches my neck of the woods. I'm going to use the hosepipe to fill all the water butts, spare wheelie bins and grandchildren's paddling pool in anticipation. Absolutely right. So the unions turn against Rayner, says Stephen. The markets turn against Reeves, the doctors turn against Wes Streeting, and his backbenchers turn against Starmer. The key lesson: loyalty can be bought. It's based on trust, and people follow people, not whimsical ideas from the loony left. Speaking of the loony left, actually, there was a great poll that went put out last night, which I should draw to your attention, because one of the things that it really makes interesting is what goes on if this new Corbyn party actually does set itself up properly. This is from Stats for Lefties. Corbyn party tied with Labour. It's got Reform on 34%, Conservatives on 17%, Labour on 15%, down 20, and the new Jeremy Corbyn party at 15%, the same as Labour, plus 15. And then it's got Lib Dems at 9 and the Greens at 5. And this is an incredible piece of information, which obviously is one poll, but it does tell you how well they're actually doing. One from Kev in Shropshire. Mike, it's simple. Growth is incompatible with net zero. While we chase this ridiculous goal, we are screwed. The Labour Party know that. Therefore, it must be what they want. They want control and a digital ID and eventually universal basic income, with all the people on benefits or working for the state. We are nearly there. Well, of course, the problem with all of that is that if you haven't actually got enough people who are paying tax, you will never actually have enough money to pay for all the people that aren't paying tax. Sean in Gloucester says, so we can get £3,750 to buy an electric car. Could be cynical, but I wonder how much of the prices will rise by. Also, where's the power coming from? Well, that's absolutely right. And, of course, so many questions about the shopping, about the gullies that Heidi Alexander wants us to get put into our streets. This is a clip from yesterday. It's actually from Sunday. Heidi Alexander, the Secretary of State for Transport, talking about the cross-pavement gully.
We're making £25 million available to councils so that they can provide financial support to households who want to put in a cross-pavement gully so that you can safely run the cable across the pavement.
Yes, so you can safely run it across the pavement. We're going to speak now to Michael Golden, co-founder of Turbocharge, who I'm sure can answer a lot of the questions that many of you asked yesterday. Lynn in Norfolk, for example, like this. Good morning, Mike. Regarding gullies for electric car charging hoses, so they dig a gully in the pavement to accommodate the hose or whatever you call it, but isn't there a big nozzle on the end? Where does that go? Does it line the gutter, or do you have to feed the hose from the house through the gully when you want to charge the car? Well, my understanding is you keep the cable sort of wrapped up, if you like, in the house, and then when you want to charge the car, you put it into the gully and you roll it down. Michael, I'm sure, can answer many of these questions. Michael, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Good to talk to you. So how does it actually work? I mean, my initial thought was that the gully would contain the cable sort of permanently, and somehow the end of it, which plugged into the car, would just be sitting in the gutter, which doesn't sound like a great idea. But how would is it right to say that you sort of roll it in when you want it?
Mike, you've explained it exactly correctly. So you just insert your cable into the channel when you want to charge your car, plug it into your car, leave it there overnight, typically 4 to 6 hours, and then when you finish charging, disconnect from the car, and the cable is then stowed safely back at the front of your house, or you might put it back in the boot of your car.
Right, okay. Because every car's got a slightly different nozzle, I think, hasn't it, in terms of what you plug in to actually charge it?
Most cars in the UK now have what's called a Type 2 connector,
right,
which is very common, and so although the size will vary slightly, the specification is the same.
Okay. And people asked me a lot yesterday about where the electricity comes from. So is it plugged into your house, in a regular plug, or is it plugged into your house in a different way? How does that work?
Yeah, so it connects to your house, so it's powered from your house, and that's exactly what we want to do here, so that people can take advantage of low-cost, off-peak tariffs, where therefore you can typically charge your car from as low as £4 at night. For for as little as £4 at night.
Yeah.
And
but do you just have a regular? Is it just a 3-pin plug that goes into the wall?
Most houses will get a charger, so a 7 kilowatt wall-mounted charger. That's the safest way. You can use a 3-pin plug, but you need to make sure that you've got something called a pen fault protection device built in, so that it's safe to charge across the pavement.
So if you got one of these chargers, how much does that cost?
So you can get them from about £850, £900 plus, fully installed.
£50 to what?
From about £850 plus.
£850. Sorry, that's okay. So that's quite a lot of money. And so the other problem that people ask me about is what happens if you can't park your car where the gully is?
Yes, that does come up a lot. So we say that with a slightly longer cable, then you can park one up, one down, or straight outside your house. So you can just trail the cable very carefully along the gutter to reach your car. So
you put it into the, so you bring it all the way to the gutter and then make it do a sort of 90-degree turn.
That's right. So very carefully lay it along the gutter. So maybe just you're trailing it 1 or 2 meters down along. So then you've got 3 parking spaces to choose from.
Right.
Typically, you'll only need to charge once or twice a week. So we always say to residents, as long as you can get outside the front of your house once or twice a week, this will work for you. If you can't, though, if you can never get outside the front of your home, then this product probably isn't for you.
No. Well, that's the thing, isn't it? So, I mean, I think most people, certainly most people I spoke to yesterday said that, you know, if they live in a street where, you know, there's quite a lot of cars, they very rarely, if ever, are actually anywhere near their house.
Well, yeah, so we completed a survey quite recently of everybody that has one of our products installed. And 80% said that most of the time they were able to make it work for them every week.
Right.
And on the times that it wasn't possible, then they could still use a public charge point, or they would maybe ask their neighbour to move if they wouldn't mind moving.
And how much? If I said,
way to make it work.
If I said to you, I wanted you to build me one of these, how much does it cost?
So the installed price is set by the local authority.
But do we pay them or do we pay you?
It varies. So we do offer a managed service to councils where residents can pay us, or other councils install it themselves, and then you pay the council.
Right.
And the price is from £999 fully installed.
From?
Yes. So it varies a little bit by local authority. It varies from about £999 to about £1,400.
Okay. And I mean, how disruptive is it to the street? I mean, what do you have to do? Do you have to close? But do you have to close the pavement when you put it in?
So actually the installation time is between 1 hour and 1.5 hours.
Okay.
So it's a very fast process. You do close the pavement for that time, but then once, as you see in the pictures here, it's a very discreet install once completed.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, that looks like it would take more than an hour and a half. I mean, I've watched people digging. I've watched people with drills digging the road.
Yes.
You know, that takes more than an hour and a half, surely.
Well, actually, we've got to the point now where it is very efficient. So you use a disc cutter to cut 2 parallel lines. You chisel out the material. The channel itself is only 30 millimeters deep, and the width of the slot is only 50 millimeters.
Right.
So it's a very shallow cut that you're preparing, and then we're using this modern gap sealant to put it in place. So yeah, it really is that fast.
Okay. I've got a question for you from Chris on a voice note. Have a listen.
Good morning, Mike. It's Chris in Northants here. Enjoying the show as always. Just on the EV gullies across the pavement. What happens when it snows? You've got to try and find your gully and clear it. And even worse, you charge overnight, and we've had snow in the night and then freezing conditions, and your cable's going to be actually frozen in place by rock hard snow. You're not going to be able to remove it.
That's what I haven't heard before. Yeah. Go on.
Sure. So on the days that there is sufficient snow to cover the pavement, which are relatively few in the UK per year, then what you would do in the morning is you would pour some boiling water, some hot water over the top to melt the snow. Then you can lift the lid.
That sounds a bit dodgy.
No, I think you when you're removing snow or ice from your windscreen, you'll typically pour hot water over that.
No, they tell you to pour cold water over it, not hot water, because it cracks the windscreen.
Yeah, well, I've been.
You certainly don't use boiling water.
So some hot water over the top, melt the snow, and then you can lift the lid and put the cable in.
Okay. And what about Turbocharge? How well are you doing? How much money did you make last year?
Well, we're making good progress. So we're live with 30 local authorities in the UK, and a further 20 have confirmed.
So you're going to get 25 million quid out of this deal then?
Not us, no. That will certainly not be going to us. That pays for our product, but also needs to pay for the installation. Some of that is also paid as a license fee to the local authority to cover their administrative time. And there are other providers as well.
Yeah, OK. Well, listen, I appreciate you talking to us, Michael. Thank you very much indeed. More questions than answers, but let's do more coming up after the news.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey!
8722, start your message with the word talk. Who would you send to space and why?
The person I would love to send to space would be Mr. Keir Starmer. And then I would tell the Galactic Empire that he was part of the Rebel Alliance and let them blow him away with the Death Star. No Brits was involved, no fingers could be pointed.
You carry on taking the medication, George. Yes, I'd send all the Labour government to space with a one-way ticket and throw in the SNP for being useless. They're all a bunch of... Oh, all right, fair enough.
One person, quite frankly, I think needs to go to space in a one-way journey is Jeremy Kyle. He goes on about his age one more time, how he's 60 this year, he was 59 last year, repetitively over the course of the weeks and months. We have to hear him, I'm 60 this year, I'm 60 this year.
Richard Tice, did you put that cheeky bugger up to that?
I'm hoping he's going to send me the invoice because that was absolutely brilliant.
Which MP would you send to space?
Although I'll get in terrible trouble if I answer that. But it's fair to say there's quite a long list.
The sad thing is about sending people into space on a one-way ticket is I don't think that we've built a spaceship big enough to take the lunatics off this planet. I mean, from the net zero loonies to the transgender loonies to the racists to the terrorists, there is just so many to the wokerati. We need some big spaceships.
Big spaceships.
Good evening. I never know how you're going to start this conversation, Jeremy.
Katy Perry went to space today, OK? Who would you send... I'd love her to say what I wanted to, but I'd never disrespect her. Who would you send to space who could never come back?
Well, I'd be happy to send Ed Miliband to space, I think.
Oh, that is an outrageous question, so I'm not even going to answer that question.
Sam Matterface, do you get the job, yeah? Go on.
No, Sam Matterface, I tell you what... There's no.
I think David Lammy would be the person I'd want to send up in space and never come back again.
Yeah, the problem is how much would the bill be for him to munch through whatever food on the way there?
Hey, it worked.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. Coming up to 3 minutes past 8. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10, of course. We've got so much going on this morning. The breaking news on Thames waterfront is that they've slumped to a £1.65 billion annual pre-tax loss from the profits they made last year of £157 million. Their debt mountain has increased to £16.8 billion. It's probably a bigger, deficit in GDP than the whole country of Czechia. We had a message from Ben in Czechia earlier to say Czechia is a great country. There's hardly any problem with immigration. The economy appears to be running quite well. Nothing is as expensive as it is here. And in fact, it's a much better country than we are. I take that point, absolutely. I think you can probably go and find any other country in the world that's running better than Britain is currently, because Britain is not running very well at all. Dame Andrea Jenkins joins us, the Mayor of Greater Lincolnshire for Reform, this hour. Also, Ryan Saby from The Sun will be here. Ross Clark, written in The Sun today about the doctors' strike. Apparently, he reckons, and I'm absolutely in agreement with him, that the BMA are fired one too many bullets this time. They expect the public to be behind them. The public are absolutely not behind them. The front pages this morning have got an awful lot of different stories. Trump threatens China over Russian oil, is the Daily Telegraph. They've also got a picture of the socialite baby killer who was found guilty yesterday of the murder of one of her own children. She's got 4 children in care. Front page of the Sun goes with the end of Turode. The BBC asked John Turode to resign from MasterChef after he was accused of racism. It was claimed last night. The dossier upheld complaints that an unnamed person used a racial phrase once several years ago. Turode has confirmed that does refer to him, but he says, I have absolutely no recollection of it. Front page of the I newspaper has Rachel Reeves offering mortgages for £30,000 earners and £25,000 earners. She's going to sweep away previous rules that were put in to stop the housing market from crashing again. More mortgages will be available over 4.5 times a buyer's income. So basically, if you can get 2 people earning £25,000, we'll be able to get a mortgage which is worth well in excess of £200,000. It could be even as much as £250,000. But of course, that won't help you if you live in the south of England. The Times, though, is probably the one that we've been talking about the most. New grant to push sales of electric cars for net zero. This is Ed Miliband's latest plan. £3,750 will be given to individual drivers if they buy an electric car. But they can't just buy any electric car. They can only buy a few. Some have to be under the price of £37,000 and they can't be Chinese. But what on earth is going on? 650 million quid of taxpayers' money being used to actually make people buy cars that they don't want. BBC under the cosh as well, calls for Tim Davie to resign. We've got plenty to talk about in addition to that. 0344 499 1000 is the number. It's all about working people, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get it on. Let's get a voice note from Pete.
Mike, what on earth is that Kerbo bloke on about? If you pour boiling water on a street, it's full of snow and ice, it's just going to ice over, someone's going to come along, slit arse over tit on it, and then sue the level. Oh, they've got some crazy ideas with his electric. And I bet you say the cable thieves are rubbing their hands together waiting.
Yeah, I mean, also, surely to heavens, you don't pour boiling water. I mean, he thinks you pour hot water on a car windscreen. You don't. They always tell you not to do that. Absolutely nothing more than cold water, very possibly slightly lukewarm water, but certainly not boiling water. It'll crack the screen. And if you've got a frozen, cable and you pour boiling water on that, what does that do to it? I don't know if this science is quite right for these guys. And apparently, if you want to put one of these gullies in and put a charging machine into the house, because otherwise your house might go on fire, that's about £2,000 to install one of these gullies. So I'm sorry, 25 million. Somebody's going to have to do this for me. Put £2,000 into 25 million. How many does it pay for? See how we go. Good morning, Mike, says Lynn in Norfolk, regarding gullies. Oh, sorry, no, I've done that one. Morning, Mike, says Andy. If Rachel Reeves is going to start hitting those who earn $50,000, then what is the point of anyone trying to work their way up the ladder only to be penalised? I've been studying and taking exams to further my career in work, but now there doesn't seem to be any incentive whatsoever. That's Andy in South Wales. Well, this is why so many people are actually leaving the country, because they can't stand not only what this government is doing to it, but what's likely to happen in the coming few weeks and months, because quite frankly, we ain't seen nothing yet. Let's talk to Dame Andrea Jenkins, Mayor of Greater Lincolnshire, a Reform member, of course. Dame Andrea, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Good to see you. We've just been talking for the last 2 days about some of the mad Labour ideas. This latest one to put, gullies into your home so that you can run an electric cable down and charge your car, which isn't actually parked there, because you can't find a space actually right in front of your house most of the time. We've just done a quick bit of maths here. £25 million, which is what Heidi Alexander wants to give to councils up and down the country. Basically, that will do 12,500 homes at £2,000 a home. It's not very many, is it?
No, but this whole net zero is bankrupt in Britain, isn't it, to be honest?
Totally.
And I was at Prax, the oil refinery in Immingham yesterday.
Yeah.
And having spoken to the minister, they've got the administrators in. Having spoken to the minister, He's very laissez-faire about it. Oh, we're not likely to get a buyer for it. But I really feel that they don't care, Mike, because it's not on... Oil and gas is obviously clearly not on their net zero agenda.
Right.
And so it's actually harming the energy security of Britain, isn't it?
Well, it really is. I mean, when we look at what's going on internationally, we've got Donald Trump threatening to put tariffs on Russia and threatening similarly tariffs on China and India. And a lot of that is about fuel and a lot of that is about energy and about where the energy goes. And we don't have any energy security at all, do we?
No, absolutely. And I think that all Miliband cares about actually is harming food security as well via his mad solar panels. All he cares about is putting solar panels everywhere. I mean, there's literally going to be about 40,000 acres of solar panels is planning for across Lincolnshire, which is bonkers. We are the county that feeds Britain, so it's harming energy security as well. But it is just got ridiculous. And I think if the government bothered to ask the public, they don't want this.
No, of course. Well, the trouble is they've now reached a point in this government, I think, where they started bad, as my father would have described it, and sort of fell away, you know, because almost every policy they now introduce is not popular, is not wanted, and is not even properly costed, as they said it was all going to be. And they're doing nothing for the economy. They're doing nothing for the people. They've pretty much alienated almost all members of the public, right? There's a poll
and there's no
out...
freedom of speech, is there?
No. I mean, there's a poll out today in which it says that actually, if the new Jeremy Corbyn party forms and is a viable machine, they would get 15% of the vote, and Labour would get 15% of the vote. So it's almost like their vote's been cut in half.
And let's not forget, actually, Mike, that a lot of the Labour cabinet supported Jeremy Corbyn, including Angela Rayner. So where is he going to tack to now? Is he going to go to the centre ground? Is he going to go to the left because of the threat of Jeremy Corbyn's party, who obviously led their party twice and nearly became Prime Minister with a disastrous 2017 election? But it does feel that they're trying to pull rabbits out the hats what's already been invented, Mike. Did you see today about this red tape announcement by Reed? They announced this in March. I remember it was during the local elections which I was standing, and they announced the same thing in March. I feel that they are reinventing this rabbit out of the hat just as a PR moment of something they've already done.
Well, this is the trouble. Most of their announcements now have to be properly investigated. Even the one we made fun of it yesterday, Rachel Reeves saying she's giving $1.5 million to chess, right, so that she can help people become chess players. Well, it turns out that wasn't even her money. Rishi Sunak actually set aside £1 million for the chess people, you know, when he was still Prime Minister. Similarly, you know, they talked about international investment coming in, and it turns out that one of the they claimed that like over £1 billion had been invested into the country, and what it meant actually was that it was just one company that had bought up two other companies' stake in an airport scenario. So, you know, they're telling lies after one lie after another. People are seeing through it.
Absolutely. But to me, all Labour care about is, number one, immigrants. People coming into this country, they care about people coming into this country more than they do British citizens. They care about those who don't work more than those who do work. They're driving people out of this country. Listen to your previous caller who was worried about earning even 50 grand, who is fearing about being taxed further and paying their bills. We've got some of the highest energy costs in the whole world, and we've got Mad Ed Miliband who's pushing this net zero even further. And there's no freedom of speech. This is a god-awful Labour government, and I do dread to think where we will be in 4 years' time, Mike.
No, I know. Let me play you Lee Anderson, your Reform colleague, yesterday asking Ed Miliband a question in Parliament, because, once again, they don't want to answer questions. Have a look.
The statement from the Energy Secretary sounded like a desperate attempt to save his own job. But he's right, the British people do need protecting. They need protecting from the Energy Secretary, because businesses that I visit every single week say that his madcap ideas are killing growth, killing business and killing jobs. But I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt if he can answer one simple question which he's already refused to answer. By how much will the Earth's temperature be reduced by if the UK became net zero tomorrow? Simple question.
And the answer which he just doesn't want to accept, is this. If he just listens, the answer is this. I believe in British leadership. I believe in Britain's ability to make a difference. And the truth is, when we, as I said in my statement, when we passed the Climate Change Act, 60 countries followed. When we legislated for net zero, many other countries followed. He talks Britain down. I believe in Britain.
God.
So apparently the answer to how much it's going to cost is, I believe in Britain.
Oh God, that was embarrassing, wasn't it, Mike?
It's so ridiculous.
Cringeworthy.
It's just he does, and he was asked several times to explain himself, and he just continually kept spouting this complete rubbish.
That's because it is rubbish.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I was an unpaid director of Net Zero Watch. I joined Net Zero Watch. I've left now because I'm the mayor. But I joined Net Zero Watch because they was the only ones challenging the cosy consensus of the three main parties at the time. You know, the Conservatives, Labour, Lib Dem, Green. They all jumped on this bandwagon. So there was no transparency. No. And is right, actually, because there's enough scientists out there who say the opposite to this so-called climate change. I think it's a bandwagon to make money. And if you look, the Together Declaration, they did a great piece on this, Mike. You ought to get them on. Yeah. See follow the money, and you will find why we're on this net zero bandwagon. They did a great piece, and I hosted them in Parliament, so I would definitely get them on.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked to Alan Miller quite a lot. You know, the thing about the follow the money is that every place you look, when you get government subsidy after government subsidy, you know, look at this, you know, £650 million they want to spend on giving people grants to buy electric cars, 3,750 a time. The guy we just spoke to there about these gullies, it's going to cost you about 2,000 quid to put one in. Now, the councils might be doing it, or the company might be doing it. We've got Steve Reed, the Environment Secretary, yesterday in the Times, accusing Reform of being unpatriotic by opposing Britain's goal of reaching net zero emissions. You know, it's like some kind of cult.
It's unpatriotic what they're doing to Britain, isn't it? Let's face it. They're driving people out the country.
Exactly.
And people don't feel safe anymore.
No. I mean, have you got any ability as the mayor of Lincolnshire, Greater Lincolnshire, to actually block some of this net zero stuff? I mean, can you do that, or is it difficult?
Look, watch this space. Richard Tice and I and the leader of Lincolnshire County Council are working on something. We'll hear about it in the next few weeks.
Okay.
I've got together with a lot of the residents, as Richard, who across the whole of Lincolnshire, who are pushing back on the mass solar farms, the pylons, even burning chicken poo in Lincolnshire. So we've got together to push back. I'm speaking at a hearing this afternoon against the solar farms as well. But what I've said I can do as mayor is, I mean, let's not forget these subsidies for the green energy sector. It's taxpayers who's paying for it, who's funding it. So I've publicly said that I will not give a penny of my mayoral money to the green energy sector. I'm going to make sure we don't put our eggs in one basket. We shift the dial. I'll always make sure we've got the right skills for whichever sector which is transferable, these skills, because we need energy, we need engineers in every sector. But what I'm also doing, Mike, I met with the fracking company who found the gas find in Lincolnshire, and which is going to add billions onto our GDP. Now, Miliband has put this moratorium on, so banning fracking. But I want to get our county ready with the right skills. So if we get a Reform government in 4 years' time, we're ready to start drill, baby, drill. So I'm going to put this plan in to get people skilled up to do that. OK, brilliant stuff. Good to talk to you. Dame Andrew Jenkins there. Thank you very much indeed, Mayor of Greater Lincolnshire. Morning, Mike, says Marco from Swindon. Any chance I can sign a memorandum of understanding going forward on how to boot out this absolute buffoon of a Prime Minister? And John says, ask your gully expert, how will this affect people pushing shopping trolleys, which we'll all be using to live out of when everything goes up in this country? I can't read out words like that. You can't be sending me that. Please, for heaven's sake. Let's get a voice note from Carl.
With reference to this EV gully and all the other parts that you need with it, of course, you've got to then install a unit on your house. But also, not all houses are actually capable of taking the charging unit. So some needs actually have an upgrade on their consumer units because they haven't got the right ampage plug or they haven't got the right cabling. etc., especially on older properties. Also, then with your gully, imagine if you do that careful 90-degree right angle turn and go up or down the curb. What happens if some big truck or big lorry comes along, or there's some building work going on just up the road and they drop something on it and it damages the cable? Now, I know these cables are tough, but they're not completely infallible.
Well, also, they might have been weakened by some maniac pouring hot boiling water on it when it was snowing, you know, and it suddenly might just disintegrate. This from somebody in Tunbridge, Dan in Tunbridge. Mike, £1,000 plus for 2 hours work in a pre-made channel fitted into the pavement. I could do that for half the price. Lots of councils making a lot of money from this nonsense. And one from Tracy in Bromley says, London Borough of Bromley say on their website not to pour hot water on ice or snow as it causes black ice. I'll have to buy some ice skates. Still, it's probably better than public transport. I mean, it's crazy, isn't it, what's going on? Putting in the, you know, it's like going back to the Stone Age. We've got petrol cars. Just use a petrol car, fill it up at the petrol station, park it near your house. The end. You don't need a gully. You don't need a charging point. You don't need a plug. You don't need, you know, to worry about causing black ice and pouring a kettle of hot water over something. You don't have to worry about where you park. As long as you're parking relatively near, you can walk to the rest of the... You know, it's just ridiculous. Let's talk to Ryan Saber, who's here, Deputy Political Editor at The Sun, of course. Ryan, very good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Mike.
So, big night for Rachel Reeves. She's in the papers today for quite a lot of different reasons. She's got a Mansion House speech. She's going to talk about how she's not going to tax working people or stroke ordinary workers. Still a bit of a puzzle as to who she means, isn't it?
Yeah, when it comes to this wealth tax or taxes on the wealthy, the government seems to have got themselves, as you say, in a bit of a muddle in recent days. We had Heidi Alexander, the Transport Secretary, who said on Sunday that those on modest incomes would be protected. Well, that started to ask questions about, well, what about those people above those modest incomes? Are we talking about a new squeezed middle, those middle classes who would be attacked and their incomes got at by the Treasury? Well, Darren Jones, the Treasury Minister, yesterday said anyone with a pay slip would not be expecting to see any great increases or any increases in their taxes. There just seems to be that little bit of confusion around. We're back to the same argument as we were probably about a year ago before the election. What is a working person? Now, Rachel Reeves goes to the City tonight. She delivers that big Mansion House speech, and they're going to be wondering about what is a wealth tax? Is the wealth tax going to affect us? How is it going to affect us? Because it does seem that those taxes, when they do come, will fall on those with the broadest shoulders, and she'll be talking to those people directly tonight.
Right. And of course, as many people have been pointing out, you know, tax already does fall on those people with the broadest shoulders. You know, the top 1% pay far more than 1% in tax. The top 25% pay 75% of the tax brought in to this government. So, you know, the idea that they're suddenly going to say, oh, I think people who are better off should pay more tax, it's already happening.
Yeah, no, exactly. You look at the figures, it's pretty clear that those who do earn the most, they do pay the most, and that those percentages are clear for everyone to see. Now, I think one of the big arguments in the coming months to come will be about tax thresholds. Those people who are hovering just below one of the thresholds, and whether the government decides to actually extend those thresholds beyond 2028 means more people get dragged into paying a higher rate of tax. Now, it may not be a tax, seemingly like it's income tax increase or more money taken off you, but people do notice when they see their pay packet. So it may not look like there's a penny on income tax or 2p on income tax, but it's all done by stealth, all done by the back door. And that's why people get particularly wound up by it, because those thresholds have been frozen for many, many years.
Right, exactly. And so it means that people who get even a pay rise, which should hopefully, counteract the amount of money that they're spending extra because of the inflationary spiral we're in, it will mean that actually they might end up getting taxed more. So they'll end up actually with less money having got a pay rise.
Yeah, no, that's right. And that's what I think that's one thing the Chancellor probably needs to address, is to try and incentivise people, to get a promotion, do work harder, maybe put in some more shifts at work. But the trouble is, if you're hovering around that threshold and you think, great, I've done really well, going to get that pay rise, but actually you're going to be dragged into that higher tax band, it's actually going to cost you money by working harder. So that's one thing she's got to address. But also, it's all about business confidence. All we're hearing at the moment from business, a clear message, is after that national insurance rise last year, we've got the prospect of all those workers' rights package that's coming around the corner. They're really, really concerned, and I think Rachel Reeves needs to send this message to business that she's on their side.
Yeah, and I mean, they're not buying it, really. We're going to be speaking to the boss of Checker Trade, a very big company that started in this country a few years ago. He's another one of those who's considering leaving the country because he's not happy with the way the government is stewarding the economy. And we've also got her going to announce tonight, we think, I don't know whether you know about this, in the Mansion House speech, a big shake-up of the mortgage business, where she's going to be saying she's going to strip away some of the more, shall we say, strict rules that were put in place after the crash in 2008, because so many people were accessing mortgages who couldn't afford to pay them back. She's basically going to go down the risky route and say, no, we're going to go back to that. We're going to start lending people money that they can take 4.5 times their salary, and we're going to lower the salary level at which they could normally do that. So you can now be earning just £25,000 and you'll be able to get a mortgage for a house that's worth 250.
Yeah, no, this is one thing that I think is going to be one of the key announcements in this Mansion House speech. And as you say, the actual salary that the banks are going to accept to actually buy a property are going to come down from, it was £35,000, going to come down to £30,000 for a single purchaser, and also for if you're a couple, two people trying to buy a house, you'll be able to do that with a joint income of £50,000. This is to try and sort of kickstart the economy, try and get growth.
Yeah,
and
because why? Because they've killed off the housing market with their stamp duty rises. That's what they've done.
Yeah, no, that has been a big problem. So they're trying to sort of attack it from the other way to get more first-time buyers onto the property ladder. And one thing that the sort of the mortgage shake-up will do will actually make sure that they get more people onto that property ladder, because they can actually borrow more than 4.5 times their salary, or the money that they're actually putting forward. Now, from tomorrow, the Nationwide will be offering 10,000 of these mortgages, and it looks like there could be around 35,000 or so of these mortgages that will be offered from banks and building societies in the coming weeks and months. This is just to get more first-time buyers onto that property ladder. Yeah, it's all going a bit wrong, isn't it? Ryan Saby, great to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Deputy Political Editor at The Sun. Mick says this: I can't believe the gully man telling us to pour hot water on high-powered electric cables. Doesn't sound right to me. And Darren in Bradford. And Mike, did I just hear that man correctly? Let's pour hot water over the gully. So we're going to put a hot water over an electric cable. Is that correct? Also, we're going to pour water up that's going to freeze again and become very slippery so people can fall over. Yeah, it doesn't sound like the guys in charge of this gully business really know what they're doing. Frankly, I wouldn't give them £2,000, but, it's not for me to say, obviously. 8:27.
if you want the people that they are calling working people or working class people, if you want the poorest in this country to feel better off, what you want is economic growth. What you want is more jobs. What you want is high-paying jobs. Everything the government is doing is completely an antithesis to that, and we really have to be very clear about this. The way you ensure that we have a growing economy is not by increasing taxes on the productive parts of the economy and spending more money. You know that public sector spending is about to get up to 50% of GDP.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 8:30. I'm Mike Graham with you, of course, all the way through until 10 o'clock. We're going to speak to Ross Clark coming up, columnist in The Sun today, as public support collapses for the BMA. He says they think doctors are so esteemed they can get away with anything. It might be in for a shock with this strike. As I've said before, the public are not with the junior doctors on this one at all. Let's get a quick voice note from Angie on gullies.
2 points on the recharging. If it only takes an hour, why is it £1,000 to install? Then you've got to find another £800 to get the charging unit. And secondly, what about those rubber mat things that they use for all electrical cables on film sets, etc.? You get these really thick rubberized things which cost about 30 quid that you can put your cable through, lay across the pavement, people can walk over it, you can drive over it if you're on the pavement, cost nothing. Why do you have to have a blooming great gully?
It's a very good point. And this from SVR. Morning, Mike. So basically we are condoning trailing high voltage cables along the gutter in the street now. A gutter that is a rain gutter, high voltage cables, cars damaging them, water, not a recipe for disaster at all. I run a workshop. We are not allowed to trail cables on an even remotely wet floor, according to the Health and Safety Executive. Exactly right. People will be getting electrocuted everywhere you go. Oh, why is that guy lying down over there? Oh, he was just trying to charge his car with his gully. Yep, I'm afraid, afraid so. Another victim of net zero. Let's talk to Ross Clark. What on earth was Labour expecting? He starts his piece with. They came to power last year and awarded junior doctors 22% of a pay rise. And now look, they're after 29%. Ross, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Good to see you. I totally agree with this piece you've written on page 10 of The Sun today. There's no way that anyone in this country now actually is in sympathy with junior doctors. Even last time they went on strike, which was 2023, lasted about a year, some people were still quite sympathetic to their cause, but I don't think anyone is now.
No, well, there's a YouGov poll last week which asked people if they're in sympathy with the plan by the BMA to call a 5-day strike, and well, it revealed that support had collapsed. There's still about a third of the population seem to be in support of the strike. I don't know why, but 49% are strongly against it now. So that's as a reversal of the situation we had last year, which shows that public support for doctors. I mean, doctors are a very popular profession. Historically, we all appreciate what doctors do, but it does show that public patience is not infinite, and when you've got doctors threatening to go on strike for 5 days, causing operations, appointments to be cancelled, then people are going to rapidly lose sympathy with them.
Yes, exactly right. I mean, the problem is as well, these are not doctors as you and I would think of doctors. You know, the guy, the friendly GP, you know, the incredibly intelligent surgeon, you know, the paediatrician, you know, who are superb at what they do. These are a bunch of kind of Marxists who have taken over the British Medical Association. I mean, as Lord Winston said this week, you know, he's given up his membership finally after about 50 plus years because he doesn't believe that they have the best interests of the public at heart. And I interviewed one of the activists from the BMA the other day, and she wasn't even a junior doctor. She was saying not only did she vote for the strike, but she wouldn't be going on strike because she's about to become a GP. And you just think, well, what's it about then? You know, and why are these people more interested in waving Palestinian flags around than actually doing their job?
Yeah, well, it's true. I mean, it needs to be emphasised that not all doctors are in favour of this strike. Not all junior doctors are in favour of this strike. Rather, just under half the BMA membership actually voted in favour of these strikes, and not all junior doctors are members of the BMA. But by the way, I'm going to carry on calling them junior doctors.
Yeah, I do that as well.
To be called resident doctors, don't they? Which just seems to be to disguise the fact they're still in training, which explains why.
Well, it's just because they think I think they think
doctors.
resident doctors sounds better. You know, they quite like the sound of it because it sounds more like something from House or one of those American TV shows, you know. But they've got it completely. I mean, even Wes Streeting must have realised that he made a massive blunder last year by giving them that 22% and then claiming that he had solved the NHS, you know, crisis, because the NHS has gone from bad to worse ever since.
Yeah, so Wes Streeting last year was boasting, you know, he'd managed to solve the doctors' strikes in the way the Tories hadn't. But, you know, it should have been pretty obvious what was going to happen. He gave a 22% pay rise with no strings attached, no commitment to embrace better working practices, to increase lamentable productivity in the NHS. And surprise, surprise, the BMA come back this year demanding even more, 29%, as they've calculated that the government's a pushover and they can sort of pretty well demand what they want.
Yeah.
But, so, yeah, the government's sort of shot itself in the foot, but not just with the doctors, by the way, but also train drivers and other public sector unions.
Also, a lot of people have pointed out that many of the people, particularly those who speak for the BMA, are quite young, and they want a 29% pay rise to restore their earnings to 2008 levels. Well, they weren't working as junior doctors in 2008. So, you know, there's that aspect of it as well.
Well, the pay restoration argument is completely spurious because what the BMA are doing is they're using what's called the Retail Prices Index.
Right.
Now, that's a sort of long discredited inflation index, which most economists accept was exaggerating inflation. It's now, for most purposes, we use something called the Consumer Prices Index.
Right.
So, you know, the BMA have sort of tried to claim that their wages ought to have gone up with RPI rather than CPI. But I mean, you know, vast numbers of people have seen real terms wages cuts if you compare them with the retail prices index. So you know, no, we shouldn't just sort of swallow that argument that sort of somehow doctors need a 29% rise to restore them to the level they were in 2008. Right. It's just simply not true.
It is not true. And also, if they weren't working in 2008, then what on earth right do they have to do it? And that is the problem. Ross, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Ros Clark writing in The Sun this morning about the state of the NHS and the state of the junior doctors dispute. Here's Wes Streeting.
What I want the BMA to recognise is that their whole dispute has been about pay. That's why the government has moved and given them a 28.9% pay increase. They can't just dismiss that or forget that. That's come at considerable cost to the taxpayer. And also, it's the highest pay award in the entire public sector. So we've got to be fair to other staff in the NHS and beyond. But there's still lots of things we can do and want to do together to improve the conditions that resident doctors are working under, to improve their career progression.
Well, I don't think there's going to be much career progression for some of them. But there we are. The strike is still apparently due to go ahead on the 25th of July for 5 days. Will it be called off? Who knows? Let's see what's being said on the Sun Letters page. This from Alex in Northumberland. Not even the most pessimistic voter could have foreseen the Labour government's disastrous decision since coming to power. Chancellor Rachel Reeves has been a disaster. Ed Miliband's obsession with net zero is a fantasy that will never be realised. And Keir Starmer is the most spineless Prime Minister ever. Must have been listening to talk. How about this on the Royal Rift? Eloise in County Down says, what great news of a possible olive branch between Charles and Harry after their aides got together over drinks for apparent peace talks. Prince Harry may have chosen his wife over his family, but he always looked lost without the royals. Perhaps now Meghan will take a leaf out of his book and make up with her elderly father, Thomas Markle. She hasn't spoken to him since before her wedding to Harry in 2018. Both grandfathers have zero relationship with their grandchildren, which is pretty sad. And then she says, she finals with, as for Harry and William, perhaps they could learn a bit about ending a family feud from Liam and Noel Gallagher. Why not? Mad for it. Can you imagine? 8:39.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 8:41. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock when Julie Hartley-Brewer will be here. I find it ironic that we hear Lisa Nandy talking about accountability, says David in Devon, when the Labour front bench don't take any for anything. Yeah, absolutely right. And one from Dave in Melton Mowbray. Morning, Mike. Yes, scrap the BBC licence fee. Let them swim in the big pond with all the other TV production companies and see how they get on with them. All the best, buddy. Thanks very much indeed. Let's get a voice note from Tim on Gullies.
Myself and my wife, we used to share a car, but recently I changed jobs and I needed a car to get around, so I bought myself a little Peugeot 108 petrol. £4,000, 20,000 miles on the clock. Brilliant. I'll be retiring in a few years. It'll just see me through to when I retire. And it runs on a whiff of fuel, about 20 quid a week it costs me. Why on earth would I spend £30,000 on a pile of crap electric car that's going to be worth half that as soon as I drive it out of the showroom?
Yeah.
This government, these people, they're just nuts. They don't live in the same world that you and I live in.
No, they don't. I've just had a little thing, a news alert, a piece in the Telegraph, reviewing the new electric Range Rover. Is it worth the money, is the question. You know how much it costs? Wait for it, £170,000. You can buy a house for that in some parts of the country. An electric Range Rover, £170,000. Are they having a laugh? So I see what you can do. Have a word. You call up Ed Miliband and you say, I want to buy a new car. Apparently you've got some money for me. £3,750. Can I get that from you, please? And then I'll only be spending about, what, 166,000 plus a bit of change on the Range Rover. Deary me. Ben Powell's here, writer and co-founder of Climate Debate UK. Ben, very good morning to you.
Good morning, mate.
This electric car business has gone insane. You know, we have had more response to this story about the gullies on the pavement than any story I think I've done for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. I've just had a guy who's in charge of installing them telling me that if it gets covered in snow, you can pour hot water over it from a kettle and that's all fine. When, of course, you're dealing with electric cables, you're dealing with, you know, black ice, you're dealing with absolute mayhem and damages on the street if somebody falls over and slips on it. You know, they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, there's every possibility that God knows what's going to be in those gullies, first of all. Second, I think they've underestimated how much power is going to be required, because you've got congestion on the roads. It's harder to understand congestion on the grid, but this has been the subject of a big debate and a big controversy over the last week, which is why they wanted to change the pricing for power, so that if the part of the country that you live in isn't well serviced by wind turbines, then you should pay a higher price for your electricity. It's like the congestion charge for electricity. So if you can imagine, if you live on a nice road and everyone's got lovely EVs and they all want to charge their cars at the same time, well, guess what? The local connection isn't going to be able to handle that load, and the wires are either going to melt, or the substation will trip out, shutting down the whole street. So these things are pie in the sky, really. You know, you'd have to dig up the entire country all over again. I remember this debacle in the 90s when they started installing cable in the town I lived in, and the such like, and that.
But it's quite a complicated process. I mean, Peter Blexley was in here earlier today, and he was saying they've been doing roadworks, digging up the pavements where he lives for about the best part of the last several months.
Yeah. We need. The National Grid already needs to spend in the order of £500 billion just to reach, I think, Ed Miliband's 2030 targets. Yeah. So add this new project into the bargain. You know, you're going to have every house is going to have a connection to
as usual, right? It's sort of half-assed, if you like. Pardon my French, because according to the sums we've done, it's only this 25 million that Heidi Alexander wants to give to councils is only going to cover 12,500 homes. It's not exactly blanket coverage, is it?
Yeah, well, that'll be all the Labour voters at the next election. So,
yeah, absolutely right. And that'll be, in fact, and half of them are going to go up to Jeremy Corbyn, according to that poll I was just reading out. But you know, this whole kind of nonsense of net zero. See, I think I can't understand is how it seems to have been ring-fenced by Starmer. You know, he's gone back on all sorts of other commitments. He's gone back on all manner of other, money-saving operations that he was going to do, and yet net zero remains untouched.
Yeah, it's a huge mystery. And yesterday in Parliament, I think we got some clues as to why that's happened. For the last 20 years, climate change has been the only thing that MPs could agree on. The problem was that the rest of the country didn't agree with the MPs. Yeah. And so yesterday, Ed Miliband was sort of bemoaning the fact that some Conservatives, so I stress some, not all of them, but the Reform Party more definitively, are departing from what has been a cross-party consensus for guiding energy policy, committing us to spending trillions of pounds into the future, seemingly to protect future generations, but actually passing a great deal of that debt onto those future generations. And so I think, and that political consensus oozed out of Westminster, if you like, or into it, and then down through the civil service and through all the sort of organisations that surround Westminster. And of course, let's not leave out all the sort of blob organisations that try and lobby politicians and Westminster and NGOs and or so on and so forth to try and make that happen. So I think this is the green ideology has become effectively the British state religion, without much consultation with the British public about that. over the last few decades. As politics has been kind of hollowed out, it's become shallow and superficial. Nobody really believes that any of the legacy parties have served their interests, and that is not a new or unique observation. People were making that observation in the mid-2000s, you know.
For sure. But it's also, it's kind of completely captured the education system. It's completely captured universities, and it luckily now is only now being kind of discarded by big corporations.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I think they've come up against reality. High finance used to be sort of a dream world, you know, it's quite removed from reality. And they said, oh, wouldn't it be better if you put your money, you know, investors put their money into stocks and shares where people were inclusive and they were green, and, you know, sort of, we're money people, you know, the sort of 80s, loads of money kind of character. But actually, you know, they ended up having many more sympathies with Greta and her pals than you know, with the kind of robber barons of old. So they encouraged, and they themselves put a lot of money behind you know, greener things, and then reality came a knocking, and people discovered that you can't eat virtue, right? No. You can't. You need oil and gas and coal. You need power to be there when you need it, right? You can't wait for the sun to come up. You can't wait for the wind to blow. And that's why that's why we saw energy prices skyrocket a few years ago, because of investment that should have gone to reliable, or firm as it's called, energy systems, went instead to these green dreams. So I think the money men have finally woken up to the fact that this has been a bit of a silly thing. Actually, again, yesterday in Parliament, we saw an attempt to reverse that, not even from Ed Miliband's benches. And this is why I'm sort of urging a bit of caution about the Conservatives, even if they seem to be a little bit net zero sceptical. It was from the Tory benches that someone was suggesting yesterday that more pensions should be forced to use to invest in green funds, because then that would create a political consensus outside Westminster, so that Conservative MP believed. Very dangerous stuff.
Yes,
they
absolutely.
want to force, like, you know, you've saved all your life, you put it into a pension fund, you think it's being well managed, then Rachel and Ed turn up and say, well, actually, you've got to start spending, you've got to start investing in British green projects. Well, you know, that might come with a promise of that fund growing, but that promise is temporary. And as we've seen, government promises of things like lower bills are fictions, and at some point the train's going to hit the buffers.
Yeah. Well, I think the train has hit the buffers, and I'm afraid the wheels have come off as well. Ben, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. We've got to run. Co-founder of Climate Debate UK and writer, of course. Coming up, we're going to talk about rogue traders. Of course, this is Talk.
If you want the people that they are calling working people or working class people. If you want the poorest in this country to feel better off, what you want is economic growth. What you want is more jobs. What you want is high-paying jobs. Everything the government is doing is completely an antithesis to that, and we really have to be very clear about this. The way you ensure that we have a growing economy is not by increasing taxes on the productive parts of the economy and spending more money. You know that public sector spending is about to get up to 50% of GDP.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham. This, of course, is the home of common sense. We're going to talk about rogue traders in a moment. Let's get a voice note from Danny on Milliband.
Morning, Mike. Danny from Stoke. That clip you just played, I've been saying this for ages, and that is the root of it. Our politicians seem to think we have more sway than what we actually do. It's like our politicians, Ed Miliband, think, do you know what, if we get to net zero, countries are going to look at Britain and go, oh my God, look at what they've done. We have to follow them. They're amazing. They're absolutely incredible. Do you know what? We have to just follow them. They don't care what we do. I bet if you ask some of the biggest economies in the world, China and, India's really rich, if you ask them, oh, what are the UK doing right now? They're like, I don't know. I don't really care. We're rich. We really couldn't care less. Oh, the arrogance. It's just...
It is amazing, isn't it? Absolutely. Danny, thanks very much indeed. We'll talk some more about all of that net zero madness coming up in the next couple of hours, or next 1 hour, actually, having said that. We're going to speak to Brian Berry, CEO of Federation of Master Builders, because cowboy builders could be costing Brits a staggering £14.3 billion. And this is dodgy builders, delayed renovations, wasted money. Before we talk to Brian from the Confederation, which came up with this study, let's talk to a victim, Michelle Thomas, a victim of a rogue trader. Michelle, very good morning to you.
Good morning to Mike.
Thanks very much for talking to us. Tell us what happened to you.
Well, my mum was diagnosed with cancer in 2019, and I decided I would be looking after her at home. She lived with me, but access to the home was difficult, so I decided to build a small extension at the front of the property. Sadly, Mum died 13 months sooner than expected, but I'd got all the plans in place, got planning permission, so I decided to go ahead in her memory. A neighbour befriended me in January 2020 after Mum had died. I knew the lady anyway, but she come over for a coffee, yada, yada, yada. And then she said to me, what was I doing about the build? And I said I was going to go ahead. And she said her son wanted to get into building in the area. He was a builder. Anyway, one thing led to another. And he came and gave me a quote. And I wasn't thinking straight. I put my hand up. I wasn't thinking straight. I didn't investigate or look into him or anything. And who thinks that someone will put on their own doorstep?
Well, yeah, you don't immediately go, well, I better go and get 6 other quotes to see what's going on. You don't want to do that, do you?
And then COVID hit and he said, oh, payments are going to be different to any normal build because I'm not from the area. I can't get an account with builders merchants, so we have to pay up front. And and then it just went from, say COVID was on, it just went from bad to worse. He had contractors in to do the work. He would never come to site. I was saying to the building inspector, this isn't right. And he said, well, the problem is we've got to work with these people. Anyway, went through till the November time, and they took off too much of the roof of the main part of the property.
Right.
And
how much had you paid him by this point?
I ended up paying him in total £72,000.
Wow.
because he kept saying to me, the builder, trust me, you're going to work with me or what?
Yeah.
I looked on Google and it said, if you've got a builder you're having problems with, you've got to work with them. The building inspector's saying, oh, you've got to work with them. And you just don't believe, there's sort of like, it's almost surreal. You don't believe that somebody is going to do or is doing what they are actually doing.
Yeah. And in the end, you had to get somebody else in to fix all the problems that he'd left behind, right?
His mother sent me a text asking me for another £12,000 and he'd get a builder to come and stay with me. And it was at that point, it was like a smack in the a real punch that I'd been done.
Yeah.
Anyway, we parted ways. He wouldn't give me any money back. He said that he didn't have any money. And I said, well, what have you spent it on? It's not on here. 6 months it took me to find. Oh, and in the meantime, when I was trying to look for other builders to come and sort of take on the job, I had one that burst into tears when he came here because he'd never seen anything so awful. The building inspector came and condemned my home. And then 6 months later, in the June, in the May, I eventually found another builder. They started in the June, July, and it cost me another £100,000 to get the place. Well, my home restabilised. What little had been done had to be demolished. And then my whole home had been destabilised. I had windows inside the property exploding because the property was moving.
Right. Goodness gracious.
And yeah, that was it really. So
you are, like many people who have been victims of this kind of thing, you're looking for some kind of recompense, not recompense, but just protection from the government. Listen, let me talk to Brian Berry, CEO of Federation of Master Builders. Brian, Michelle's story is awful, isn't it? Nearly 200,000 quid to get something that she thought was only going to cost about 50 or 60 in the first place.
Yeah, no, a really bad story there from Michelle, and it's just sadly representative of other people who've been affected by rogue traders, cowboy builders. And the simple fact is, anyone can be a builder in our country, and that is not right. We need some form of accreditation or licensing scheme for building companies in this country, because as our research has shown, consumers have spent over £14 billion over the last 5 years. And it's not just the financial cost, it's the emotional stress and anxiety, as we saw there in that case. And too many people have fallen victim. The industry is looking for the licensing. 86% of our members are calling for a licensing regime, and it makes sense to protect the consumer so that they have the reassurance to know actually the company doing the work is competent to do so. And if anything goes wrong, there is a licensing authority to actually look into the matter.
Yeah, because there currently is no system like that, no protection really for ordinary people. Hard to believe that that's the case in this world of regulation. How has it slipped through?
Yeah, so it is one of the last part really. There's obviously a lot of regulation. No one wants regulation for the sake of it, but the fact that anyone can set themselves up as a building company with no demonstration of qualifications or competence and allowed to operate and going into people's homes, often the homeowners are spending tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands. So what we're calling for is for a building company to be registered or licensed to give that protection to consumers. I mean, it's absolutely common sense, and we need to actually stop this from carrying on. It's something that was identified in the Grenfell Inquiry report. One of the recommendations is calling for the licensing of principal contractors, and we hope that the government will look into this. And I think this should be a cross-party issue. It is not right that there are so many victims as a result of these practices going on every day in this country. It means the government loses out on revenue. It means consumers are suffering financial and emotional loss, and the industry is also being tarnished by these people.
Yeah, absolutely shocking stuff. Brian, thanks very much indeed for talking to the CEO of Federation of Master Builders, who have said cowboy builders could be costing Brits a staggering £14.3 billion a year. Remember, if you've got a story that's affected you or your family and you think we should know about it or investigate it further, email us at tips@talk.tv. Michelle Thomas, thank you so much as well for talking to us, and good luck. If there's anything we can help you with, by all means do ask. We'll see what we can do to try and somehow get some kind of recompense. Surely there must be something that somebody can do for Michelle. Absolutely shocking stuff. Coming up in the next hour, Isabel Oakeshot's here. We'll talk some more about gullies and much else besides. This is Talk. Good evening and welcome to Plank of the Week. It's the one show where you do not have to be worried about judgmental people because we'll do all the judging for you. Let's just have a look at how Humphrey Useless is now spending his time.
There goes your career, mate.
Over there a bit is over towards where all the migrants come in. He's jumping there. There he goes. He goes over the bar.
Hello,
and
lady.
unfortunately,
Oh, look.
it catches on his Johnson.
If he's Plank of the Week, he's got a sizable plank.
That's a whole different show.
Plank of the Week, Fridays at 7 on Talk.
Hi, I'm Kevin O'Sullivan, and I've got a message for you. Welcome back to this blockbuster edition of What Just Happened. It really is a good one, I think. It's so funny that people keep calling me Meghan Markle.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, coming up to 6 minutes past 9. I'm Mike Graham, and we are here, of course, for one more hour. Julie Hartley-Brewer taking over at 10 o'clock. Breaking news this morning, Thames Water said it slumped to a 1.65 billion annual pre-tax loss from profits of 157 million last year. They saw its debt mountain increase as well to 16.8 billion. Meanwhile, southeast London appears to be out of water because there's been some kind of water, not I wouldn't say a leak exactly, but some kind of burst pipe situation going on not far from where I live. So I woke up this morning to the rather unfortunate situation of no water whatsoever. Not a mention of it on any website, not a mention of it on any alert, nothing at all. So I had no idea whether it was because somebody like Ed Miliband had decided to just ban me from having water on the grounds of my views, or whether it was in fact a sort of wide problem that was affecting the area. They've started putting out warnings now and saying if you see a big lorry somewhere nearby, that'll be a tanker with water in it. I don't know why they put these warnings out. What does it mean? We'll be talking to Isabel Oakeshott coming up in a moment. We'll find out what she makes of Rachel Reeves' latest plan tonight when she makes her Mansion House speech to tell us that she's going to cut loads of red tape in the city. She's going to start lending money to people that can't afford to pay it back. And indeed, she is certainly not, under any circumstances, going to raise taxes for ordinary working people. We now seem to have a slightly different definition of working people. Now it's ordinary workers, presumably those who make less money than those she's about to tax. She's not very clear, is she? We'll let you see what she's been saying as well. Let's get a voice note from Ellie, or Elle rather, on those gullies in the street.
The gutter man's insane.
I once received £15,000 in compensation from a hotel chain because I'd slipped over where they'd cleared the snow. And apparently, if they'd left it all and not touched any of it, then that would have been one thing. But the fact they cleared half of it and I'd fallen over on it, I got £15,000. The other thing is, if you put in warm water, not hot water, over your windscreen, that's fine in your driveway because it's your driveway. You can't do it on the path. The road would be one thing, but the path is for pedestrians. He's mad. The lawsuits that are going to come out of this is going to be insane.
Yeah, this is, of course, Heidi Alexander's latest plan to give £25 million to councils to put in a load of gullies so that they run from your house down to the pavement, down into the curbs, so that you can plug in your electric car that you don't want, you've been forced to buy by Ed Miliband because he's given you a grant of £3,750, another £650 million going out of the Treasury, taxpayers' money, our coffers paying for other people to have cars that they quite fancy getting. It's absolutely extraordinary. Lots of other news going on as well. We're going to be talking about what else is going on in the big wide world. Donald Trump, of course, making a lot of noise over in America last night about Russia. He's saying Putin has been very disappointing. He's now going to try and put tariffs on India, on China, as well as Russia, if they don't come to some kind of peace agreement in Ukraine. 0344 499 1000 is the number. This is Morning Glory. And we, of course, are here until 10 o'clock. So that bloke is charging £1,000 or more for a gully, says Sean. Then it's about £1,000 to have a charger installed. Then you can look forward to ongoing rows about parking. Alternatively, stick with a petrol or diesel car and then have none of these problems, says Sean in Briglington. And George says, great show, Mike. With these gullies, councils will be marking up their charges to get their cut. Therefore, add another £1,000. Yeah, you need to pay about £2,000 to get one of these gullies put in. And that's only going to work if you can actually park your car there, which, of course, you won't be able to do. Absolutely madness. Incredible. Let's talk to Isabel Oakeshott, Talks International Editor. Isabel, very good morning to you.
Morning. Yeah, I was fascinated with your interview with Gully Man. I mean, I live in a really woke village, and I can so see this. So it's going to be these gullies crisscrossing the pavements up and down the village. And I mean, I get what they're trying to do, because at the moment you see people kind of hanging the cables outside.
Looks mad, doesn't it?
And it's all just a mess. But the idea of pouring boiling water on an electric cable definitely struck me a bit alarming.
Yeah, I mean, I'm no scientist, as you well know, but that doesn't sound right to me. And since then, people have said, this guy is absolutely doesn't even know what he's talking about, and it's his business that he's doing.
Yeah, not very encouraging. But the other thing, I was kind of alarmed to hear that you've got no water at all. I mean, I'm sitting here in North Africa. I'm looking out. The sprinklers are working really nicely. Everything looks quite lush and green. There's no talk of a hose pipe ban in this part of Africa, where I'm normally talking to you from the Middle East. I've never heard anyone say, oh, go easy on your shower, try and save water. Right. I mean, it may be in the middle of a desert, but they don't seem to have any problem with continual water flow in that part of the Middle East. What is it with our country, which is replete with rain most of the time, that we're not capable of securing a proper water supply?
Well, it's incredible. And also, as you might expect, I mean, Thames Water's story this morning saying that they've actually slumped to a £1.65 billion annual pre-tax loss, having made £157 million last year in profit. I mean, it beggars belief how they've managed to do that. But yeah, I mean, I'm like most people. Occasionally things go wrong. You don't really mind. But I woke up this morning, went to get in the shower, turned the tap on, and literally nothing came out. And I thought, well, I better just check and see if there's some kind of... Because the last time this happened, there was somebody in the street who'd put an axe through the water pipe. But I couldn't see anything. And there was nothing. I went to Thames Water's website. No mention of it at all. The first mention was at 6:45. And I'm afraid that's too late for me. I was up at, 20 past 4. So, I mean, I was completely in the dark. Had no idea whether when I get home today it will be fixed. It probably will be. But, you're right. It's not good enough, is it?
Well, it basically seems symbolic of a country that's sort of failing, doesn't it? Better water is absolutely as basic as it gets. And, now and again there are stoppages and they're planned, and you get a little note around saying we've got to do some essential maintenance. Yeah. But it does seem to me Thames Water is just not really fit for purpose. It seems to blunder from one crisis to another. in a country that ought to have plentiful water supply, just doesn't seem to be able to reliably provide it without half of it leaking out along old pipes.
It is extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, speaking of not fit for purpose, we'll get to the government in a minute, but let's talk a bit about the BBC, if you don't mind. Not fit for purpose. I mean, Tim Davie under fire, seriously under fire now. I don't understand how he's still in the job. But, I mean, with the week that they've had, how much longer can he survive, do you think?
Well, I saw a cartoon somewhere sort of saying, let's get to the news, and finally to a story that isn't about the BBC. You know, each and every day there's some other BBC disaster, scandal, whatever. You almost come to pity the guy. He's got a wretched job. Every day seems to be firefighting. I don't know. Does it change? Is it any better if there's a different man or woman at the top? It's just a dysfunctional institution like so much else in our country. Packed full of woke people that can't see the reality of the type of organisation they run. You and I probably agree on this. I think it was long ago time to defund the thing.
Yes, that's right. And you're right. I mean, you probably wouldn't make any difference, but it just always galls me to see these characters picking up their very nice six-figure salaries, which are paid for essentially by licence payers who are having to fork out every single year more money because otherwise, you know, they're not allowed to watch it or they get arrested or something. And it just seems to me that they've got literally nothing right. And you're looking at the front page of the Sun there, the end of Tyrode, where, you know, yes, it's full of woke people, but yet they allow people to behave in that way, as Greg Wallace and possibly Tyrode did as well, for years and years and years, and nothing happens.
Yeah, and it's a sort of cult of the big star, and we've spoken about it time and time again. There's always one case, another case. These stars let the adulation go to their heads and seem to think that they can behave as ever they want with impunity. And it won't be the last, will it? There'll be another case like this in a few months' time, because I suspect there's a bunch of these cases.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, we've got the pay list to come out at midday today. So who's the top paid people at the BBC? I presume now that Gary Lineker and Hugh Edwards have gone, there'll be a bit of a new look to it. But I'm not quite sure. Let's talk about Rachel Reeves, though, because she gets up at Mansion House later on tonight, makes a speech where she claims she's going to be deregulating the city. I'm not sure whether that's a good idea. I'm not against deregulating the city, but I'm just not sure that in the hands of Rachel Reeves it'll be done very well. And also, she's still struggling to determine what she means by working people.
Yeah, well, working people that's the group that wasn't supposed to be taxed any further, wasn't it?
That's
I mean,
right.
it's a very, very diminishing group at this point because everybody's been hammered. And I heard Ryan Saby on with you earlier, the Sun's deputy political editor, talking about these thresholds and how many people are being dragged into higher tax brackets. And I mean, what this government desperately needs to address is the one thing that she can't address, and is why she's so miserable, which is that there are far too many not working people who are living off a diminishing number of people paying ever higher amounts of tax. And she really is boxed in. I mean, she's trying to move the narrative on now with these headline announcements on mortgages. I think it's quite interesting. I mean, I was lucky enough to be able to get my first apartment with a really small deposit. You know, you look back on what our generation was able to do on modest salaries, and you could get a foot on the housing ladder. And it would be great if young people were able to do the same. It has got so out of control. I mean, who on earth can save, you know, 60, 70, 80,000 pounds for a deposit? You know, and you're a young person, you're earning, I don't know, 30 grand a year. Right. It's impossible.
Well, exactly.
So,
but she's also looking at making it possible for people on £25,000 a year, if there's two of them, to be buying houses that are worth sort of, you know, 250, 300,000 quid. I just wonder if that's not a recipe for disaster, because you're asking to prop up the economy by borrowing more money.
Yeah, look, I'm not an expert on this. All I know is that I was able to buy way back in the day, using with a £5,000 deposit, I could buy a property for 60,000. It's going to make me sound absolutely ancient. But it is important that people are able to have a stake in the property market, but obviously it has to be done responsibly.
Yeah.
And I think this will steal Rachel Reeves a sort of either a positive or at least a talking point headline, perhaps for 24 hours. But it doesn't change the fundamentals, which is that the economy is tanking and she's going to have to come back for ever more tax. And we're not very far away from that point. You know, I'm afraid it's coming up to yet another dismal autumn of, you know, the government laying the ground for more tax raids. And I'm incredibly worried about the notion of so-called wealth taxes, not because it's going to affect really anyone that I know, but because of the message that sends out and the fundamental misunderstanding of how wealthy people operate. They don't sit around saying, well, I'll just keep my assets here to be clobbered by a squanderous government. They just leave. And, you know, so many of them have already left.
Well, that's what we've seen. I mean, we're going to be talking to the boss of Checker Trade, which is a very successful British company, who texted into the show yesterday to say that he's not sure whether he's going to leave the country, but he's pretty sure that he is. He just doesn't know exactly where he's going to go. He might go to Jersey, he might go to Dubai, and he's got no faith in this government making his life any easier for the next 3 or 4 years. You know, and that is a massive problem for this country, because they don't seem to know how to stop the economy from just derailing. I mean, it's off the rails already, isn't it?
Completely. And most people don't want to leave. I mean, I can almost hear the reluctance in the tone of that message that you've just paraphrased there. You know, it's an absolute hassle to leave the country. You know, most people love their country. They want to be at home. It's where their families are. It's where all their social networks are, and it's no small thing to relocate. But people are leaving in despair. I do believe that most people who are leaving plan to come back as soon as sanity returns to the UK. But I don't think that that's going to be next year or the year after, is it?
I don't think it is. I mean, that is the problem. Good to talk to you, Isabel Oakeshott. Thank you very much indeed. Talks International Editor. Let's get a voice note from Lucy on MPs.
Hi, Mike. Lucy in Nottingham. On the ludicrous answer Ed Miliband gave in Parliament, I was just wondering why it's deemed okay for politicians to be allowed to avoid answering questions, because no one in the history of time has ever asked a question and not expected an answer, which it just baffles me what makes these clowns so special. Not to mention that they have constituencies, these MPs, for that exact reason, to put people's concerns and questions to Parliament, and you can't get a bloody straight answer out of any of them. They should be forced to answer the question. Drives me nuts. Great show. Love your work.
Thanks, Lucy. Thank you very much indeed. Yeah, I mean, of course, that's exactly what was being said by Esther McVey yesterday. She was like, you know, why can these people not answer questions? She was putting the question, her own question, to the Deputy Speaker of the House, who didn't really seem to have much of an answer for it either. Let's have another listen to what Esther McVey had to say yesterday.
Madam Deputy Speaker, we are elected to this House to hold the executive to account and ask questions on behalf of our constituents. The Right Honourable Member for Doncaster North, in common with many ministers, is treating this House and our constituents with contempt by not even attempting to answer the questions that is asked of them, probably because those answers would be embarrassing to them. There is getting to be very little point asking ministers questions at the dispatch box. What can you do as Deputy Speaker to encourage ministers to actually answer the questions that are asked of them?
I thank the Honourable Lady for prior notice of that point of order. I trust and understand that she has notified the Right Honourable Member for Doncaster North. She has indeed. Ministers are responsible for their answers, not the Chair, but the point has been made and no doubt been heard, the point that's been made by the Right Honourable Member, and the Treasury front bench will no doubt relay that back.
I mean, is there anybody in that place that knows how to answer a question? Because none of them seem to be capable of it. It seems ridiculous, but it's true. 22 minutes past 9.
When it comes to breaking sanctions rules, ignorance is no excuse. You have to make stringent checks when it comes to dealing with sanctioned entities or people to make sure that you are complying, even if you don't think there's a case to answer from the very beginning. You have to show you've gone through the process. So something's gone wrong with the BBC's processes, and given that this is such a high-profile case, it seems incredible that we wouldn't have, some sort of action taken that would see heads roll afterwards. But we'll have to wait to see, won't we?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. 25 minutes past 9, very nearly. An hour to install turbocharged gully, says Steve. Not if it's a stone flag pavement or there's stone curb, as there often is in older terraced house areas. And what about one-way streets? You can't get the cable to bend if your car charges on the side, so it'll stick out in the road. Well, there is that. And Julie in West Sussex says, about these gullies in the pavement, has anyone given it any thought about blind people navigating these pavements and other people who have mobility problems? Our pavements on the whole are already full of unevenness and danger. Yeah, a wheelchair or pushing a pushchair with a child in it as well. Absolutely right. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. We're going to talk now, though, to Kevin Byrne, OBE. He's the founder of Checker Trade, a company many of you will be familiar with. He wrote us a really, really interesting text message yesterday, and we thought we should get him on to talk about it. Let me just read this to you. I've done well in life, he said. I've built a national brand and sold it, and I'm now in the process of thinking where I should go because there is no hope or glory in this country anymore. I've lost my belief in this country. I pay my taxes like everyone else, but what does the government do with it? They invite illegals into the country and spend our taxes on them. Where is this country going? I'm not sure, but it doesn't feel right to me. So I'm considering either Portugal or if I can get in Jersey. Will I go? It will depend on Nigel getting in or not. Kevin Byrne, very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me, Mike. It's great to be on the home of common sense.
Yeah,
Thank
not
you.
at all. No, it was nice to hear from you yesterday. I just said to Christian, my producer, I said we should really try and get Kevin on. So we reached out to you, and here you are. It's a shocking situation that people like yourself feel the way you do.
I absolutely agree, Mike. And in preparation to this, I actually thought of a parable which would really illustrate how people like me are feeling. If you don't mind, it only take 30 seconds.
Yeah.
There's a club. It's a social club. It's a great club, and everyone's welcome in this club. But there's a subscription fee. It's £100 a year. And some can easily afford that. Some are on hard times. Some don't work because of injury, but that's fine. We're happy for all those types of situations. But there's a small group in that club, about 10% of them, that really make a huge difference to that club. They work on it constantly. They bring great ideas to it, Mike, and they bring wealth to it. They bring new members to it. They bring prosperity to that group. And then what do the owners of the groups of the club say? They go, well, look, you 10%, you guys, we think we should double your subscription. In fact, we think we should triple it. In fact, we think even when you die, we want to take 40% of all your money. In fact, we want, whilst you're alive, we want you to contribute 60% of all the money that's needed to run this club. So what are those club members in that particular category going to do? They're going to think, hold on, I'm being taken advantage of here. I'm not being appreciated, and I'll consider going. And that's exactly how I feel right now.
Because you haven't done what you've done by building up a company and making it work and calling it a national brand, then selling it. And I don't know whether you're thinking about doing something similar or whether you've just thought of maybe I'll just go and spend the rest of my life taking it easy, which you've perfectly well earned to do. But when you do that, people mistakenly think that you know, you're just doing that for your own benefit. You're creating jobs, you're creating money, you're creating growth in the economy, you're creating, you know, an awful lot of goodwill, you're employing a lot of people, and I don't think this government understands any of that.
I certainly don't think they do. This government, and I haven't looked into it, but I've heard many times they haven't got a single person on the front bench that's run a company or built a company from scratch.
No.
And that really does show. You know, this Britain has got a 2.6 billion debt, and it's like a charging hippo heading straight for us. And the government are standing in front of this hippo, and they're waving a toothpick, Mike, and they're saying, "Stop! You've got some plaque on your teeth."
Yeah.
And it's just ridiculous. They like for example, all this hoo-ha about taking away the pensioners' heating.
Yeah.
I reckon that is probably such a tiny slither of what the national debt is and what the GDP of the UK is. It's probably a fraction of 1%.
Yeah, easy.
You know, when I built Checkatrade, I always had a principle that if something had less than a 5% impact on the bid, give it that much time. I would really look at the big issues and tackle those big issues. And I'm not a politician, so I don't really know what I'm talking about to a degree, but I just don't see the huge issues being addressed by this government or previous governments.
No, not at all. Well, many of them caused by previous governments, and, you know, I don't let the Tories off the hook on this one, because a lot of the problems that we've got were caused by them, but they seem to have just sort of telescopically got worse in the last 12 months.
Absolutely, Mike. I fully agree with that. But coming back to your original question, for me, I believe there are, in my category, and we all see things through our own tinted lenses, don't we?
Yeah.
But I've been in a position where before I started Checkatrade, I was a carpet cleaner, and I had nothing in my pocket, so I can see it prospectively from both angles.
Yeah.
But for me, these are the two big issues. It's the culture. The culture is changing fast. And I believe unless something happens within the next 5 years, it will be irreversible. And I'm really frightened about that, not for me, but for what this country is going to look like for my children or my grandchildren.
Yeah.
And that's a big concern to me, the culture changing.
Yeah.
And then for me, and this is purely for someone that is within my bracket, I feel, probably more than others, I believe that if there was a reasonable tax level with well-maintained public services, and we believed that we were putting into something that genuinely worked, and I'm putting in, I mean, I'll tell you, it's since I sold my company, I've paid 11 million in tax. So when people say the rich don't pay their fair share, it's absolutely ridiculous. I don't know where people get that from, because we do.
Every wealthy person that I know who does what you do, runs a company, I mean, the numbers they tell me about the amount of tax they pay is absolutely prodigious, incredible.
It is ridiculous. And then what they want to do, and this won't affect most people because inheritance tax, for me, is a big issue. I'm 61 and I'm thinking, how do I preserve the wealth of my family? I didn't work hard for 30 years to give the government 40% of what I've achieved. I don't mind paying my fair share of tax. But most people, they're not in a position where they're having to pay a lot of inheritance tax. But when you have done well in life and you're now thinking millions of pounds are going to go to the government who really have not got a clue what they're doing with this money, it just really, it really gets my back up.
Well, when they start telling people they're going to give my money and your money away to people so they can get a break on an electric car, or they're going to give another 25 million to some council so they can put some gullies in the street so you can put an electric car in there. You know, they're taking literally the money that you've made and that I've made and giving it to people, in some cases, who don't even need it.
We've got a nanny state, haven't we, Mike? We're being told everything that we should do in life, and these are the reasons why we should be doing it, and they are just rammed down our throat. If only we could turn the clock back 30 years, where we could make our own decisions on what we did in life, and where the business sector would shape and form to the needs of the people.
Yeah.
And
Well,
that's
this is
how
it.
life used to be. But today, it's not like that, is it?
It's really not. I mean, people say
we're
it's a
just
bit-
having things shoved down our throats that we don't want.
Yeah, it's a bit like the 70s, economically speaking, but culturally, actually, it's not. Because in the 70s, when there wasn't much money and there were 3-day weeks and power cuts and, you know, strikes and all of that, we got through all that because there was a sort of a stiff upper lip. There was a sort of a British spirit going on. Whereas now it's a very different thing. And people say, even with Oasis reforming, you know, people are going to see Oasis. They're not just enjoying it because of the music, because they're thinking back to what it was like in the 90s. Which was, it seems like a million years ago,
That's
when
right.
actually life was a lot better
The good
in
old
this
days.
country, you know?
Yeah. The good old days.
Yeah.
But let me give you a scenario of what I feel is happening today within the governments. And if I can equate this to business, and I know for the politicians out there on the left, this will go straight over their heads. But imagine you're a CEO of a business and it's hemorrhaging billions of pounds. You're losing your customers left, right, and left, right, and centre. Things are just falling apart. So as the CEO, I run into the staff room, Mike, and I shout, right, I've got an answer. The answer is we're going to cut the heating in the staff room.
Right.
That's going to save us £4,000 a year. It is absolutely ridiculous. It's at the moment with this debt that we've got, and you know the left talk about this £20 billion black hole. There isn't a £20 billion black hole. There is a 2.6 billion debt. Why can't they get that into their heads? It's a 2.6 billion debt, and it's like a charging rhino heading straight for us. And
But
what
this
is the government doing?
2.6 billion
It's
debt.
got a toothpick in its hand.
But I mean, you're saying 2.6 billion debt. I mean, that's nothing. 2.6 billion. What is that, a day? I mean, we're talking trillions of debt, aren't we?
Trillion. Sorry, trillion. I got it
yeah.
wrong.
Yeah, I was going to say trillions. I mean, we're
trillion
talking, you know, 2.6 billion. They're going to try and get that back off the benefits bill if they can, but they probably won't. But let me ask you this, Kevin: are you going to leave the country? Do you think?
It really, really does depend on what happens over the next 4 to 5 years with the Reform Party. When I listen to Nigel, and I have met him, and I've spoken to him, and he's, the time I spent with him, he's a great guy, very honest, very sincere, very focused on wanting to make a difference in the UK. And I'm just hoping and believing that the country will start to believe in him even more than what they are doing now, because there is no hope with this government. There is no hope with Conservatives. We need reform without a doubt. It doesn't need that toothpick trying to defend yourself against this charging rhino. We need some radical changes. Most of the time we're quite negative about things, but I really do believe, Mike, that there is a way of turning this country around. We can do it.
Oh, no question.
And I ponder upon this greatly as a businessman.
Yeah. Well, listen, Kevin, it's been a pleasure to talk to you, and hopefully we'll talk again, because I think you've got plenty to offer in the realm of common sense. So I think we should get you back on a regular basis. Good to talk to you. Kevin Byrne, OBE, founder of Checker Trade, seriously concerned about the state of this nation, as so many of us are. And maybe people like him can actually make something happen. 45,734. You can just see the migrant tracker there popping up into the corner. Coming up after this, we're going to have the CEO of We Served, Hugh Andre. He's going to be joined by Phil Campion, former soldier, author, TV personality, hero. It's all happening next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to 9:40 very nearly. We're here till 10 o'clock, of course. Julie Hartley-Brewer coming in after that. Chris in Sheffield says cable theft will go through the roof with this stupid idea of gullies. They're already selling the cables and stealing them from the public ones. Yeah, exactly right. Electric car charging gully outside your house. Is the gully for charging electric cars covered? If not, you'll have to clean it before you can put it in your cable. There'll be leaves, there'll be rubbish, dog poo, etc. Yeah, it's a bit of a nightmare. I'm delighted to say, though, we're going to take a little change of tack here, as I'm joined by Hugh Andre from We Served. He's the CEO of this great new company that's been started up to help people coming out of the military, getting into themselves, into new jobs, into recruitment situations. And Phil Campion is here as well. A sort of, I don't know what you call yourself, military superstar. You know,
National treasure.
National treasure. You know, man about town. Media companies. You know, former military record. You're a former soldier, an author. You're joining We Served as an ambassador, I understand.
Am, yes. Yeah.
So is this your sort of first time saying it? What are you going to do?
It's not our first rodeo, and that's where this comes from. So it's a trust thing for me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I think, you know, we're trying to build a community that we can trust, that veterans can go to, that is veterans for veterans, about veterans, and it's got to have a credible, launch pad.
Yeah.
It's got to be trust. So we got. First thing I ask you, who's involved, mate?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? He says Ed Butler. Ed Butler. What, LCO? Yeah, of
That's
course.
him.
You know, we know people. Do you know what I mean? So it's created this environment where people can go, and not necessarily even just for help, just for the community value for it. Because you can't trust a lot of people out there now.
No, that's true.
So trust is a huge thing for us, massive for us. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah. And this is a big week, isn't it, for the military? Because only yesterday we saw sort of parade down into Westminster. A lot of veterans there wanting to make their voices heard, wanting to, you know, impress upon the government that what they're trying to do right now with Northern Ireland and what's.
Well, it's wrong. It's wrong on every level. And what they're trying to do, the government, is like, right, we're going to investigate you here, but we're going to try and recruit you here.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? We're on the precipice of possibly World War.
Yeah.
And they're going to go, but no, how do soldiers who are serving now feel about that yesterday?
Yeah.
You know, feeling that, you know, if they actually push me into a fray, am I going to have to take my lawyer with me? Because that's what serving soldiers are saying. Can I take a lawyer with me?
And it's just not practical, is it?
No, of course it's not.
At all practical.
It's unbelievable. And don't forget the decisions that these people are making are from high-backed leather chairs.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? A soldier gets seconds, split seconds, life and death.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not fair to then come back after he's only acted upon his orders to then debrief him and start going back over stuff that happened. It's wrong. It's a mess.
Completely wrong.
They need to draw a line in it, put it to bed, do you know what I mean, and move on. Do you know what I mean?
And so far they're not doing it, but David Davis was talking yesterday. I've got a little clip I want to show you. He was in Parliament yesterday talking about the exact problem that you are.
The largest group of people killed in the Troubles by a vast margin were those murdered by paramilitaries, to use the current euphemism for terrorists. Killed by terrorists. Of those 2,000 people, every one was a murder, an unlawful killing, to use the phrasing in the coroner's courts these days. An unlawful killing, every one. We don't need a court to establish that. And the number of those IRA murders that will be subject to inquiry on the current listing, we've got 33 listed, two out of 2,000. This is because the major driver for those inquiries is the IRA Sinn Féin efforts to hide their own barbaric acts behind a freedom-fighting facade, trying to rewrite history, with them as heroes and the British state as villains.
And that's it in a nutshell, isn't it? I thought that was a really powerful speech that he made yesterday.
Yeah, no, I actually interviewed him myself yesterday in the square. A man that's been there, seen it, done it again. You know, a trusted voice for us anyway. You know, and telling it how it is.
Yeah.
And all too often, you know, the people that are making the decisions haven't been there, seen it, and done it. So what would they know? Do you know what I mean? They've got no experience in that field whatsoever, yet they're handing down these great big decisions. No, just leave it alone.
But the problem is that half of them are all human rights lawyers, and so they think the human rights of, you know, anyone are more important than, it seems, the rights of British soldiers.
Yeah, it's the whole thinking is insane. And these people, these human rights lawyers, their experience outside of an office environment is absolutely nil.
Right.
So they're not listening.
I mean, it's ironic, isn't it? Because if there was to be any kind of conflict, they'd be the first on the phone to you, going, "Do you mind coming to help us out?
100%.
Bad guys coming down the road in a tank."
How are you expecting to recruit young men and women into British Armed Forces if they do it knowing that, they might be pushed into a court and accused of X, Y, and Z at the end of it? I'm probably seeing the same in the police as well.
Yeah.
We've got to start getting rid of services and bringing forces back in.
Yeah, definitely. And for people who don't know, Hugh, about We Served, I mean, you and I have been speaking about this for a long time, but just give us a quick overview of what you're up to, what you're doing.
So, 2 years in the making. We've done a couple of surveys, 200,000 veterans, and then more recently we did a smaller one, 4,000 or 5,000, and we asked the community what they want. And overwhelmingly, the number one requirement was for employment, jobs. Secondly, as Phil's mentioned, community, a trusted, safe community where they can be amongst their own. After that were things like healthcare provision, training, upskilling, housing, and rewards, benefits. I don't like to call them discounts, it cheapens their service, but rewards and benefits, that sort of thank you for your service. So on Thursday, We Served will release its model, its platform, and we're asking all veterans to register. And here's the biggest differentiator: every veteran will have to prove their service. So get your docs ready, whether it's your ID cards, your proof of service, your red book, because we want to make sure that you are in amongst a community that you trust with people like yourselves.
And Phil, you've come to this, obviously you've got your military background, as you say, not your first rodeo with Hugh. He's not a bad bloke, is he?
He's all right, he's all right.
He's okay. So what are you going to be doing as an ambassador then?
Promoting the cause and trying to build relationships. I'm all about collaborations and relationships with people, and this is exactly where we are. So I also run a company called Force Media. That is a forces-based community. So I've got a large database of people that are already in the community. So we'll be trying to bolt that together, put that together, promote that, and grow bigger and stronger together in an environment which we all understand.
And do you think that the way that this country's running at the moment, this is a good time for what
I think it's a great time, because in times of peace, prepare for war.
But people are also looking for something to hold them together, because a lot of people are looking at this government, and you don't have to be anti-Labour to just say something's not going right.
It's not going right, and we are in a period of time now where we are potentially looking at something very seriously happening on a worldwide scale. So to start bunching together, to start building credible relationships, and to start doing stuff and standing up for yourself, now's a good time, isn't it?
No, definitely. I mean, standing up is what a lot of people, that we talk to on this show, we call ourselves the home of common sense. There's not a lot of it about, but there's plenty of people in this country who are being ignored and who are being just trodden down and not being
There's
listened
a lot
to.
of hidden agendas out there as well. You never really know what you're getting.
Right.
So we want to create an environment where you lay all your cards on the table. You can all have a look. You can scrutinise them, and we can see what you're about. You can see what we're about, and we can move together and push ahead and forge something worth having.
And when you talk to people currently in the military, as I'm sure you do a lot, what do they tell you about how they're feeling?
They feel left behind sometimes. Not everybody. But some people, they feel like society almost turns its back on them. Say, oh, Tommy this and Tommy that again, isn't it? Rudyard Kipling was writing about it years ago, wasn't he? It's still the same thing. Yet, come the day of the race, when the Russians are knocking on the door, oh, in you come, son. Do you know what I mean? It's going to be like that again, isn't it?
And it'll be all those who've not had a pay rise. And don't have the opportunity to ask for a pay rise. Good old British Armed Forces and the police, they're the ones who, frankly, do a lot of the dirty work,
they're on the front
they?
line, aren't they?
Yeah, on the front line, but get left behind. So if you're listening, let's give the armed forces a pay rise as well.
Yeah, okay. And how do people get in touch with you guys if you need them?
WeServe.com.
WeServe.com. Phil, good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Hugh, thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you for your support.
Launching on Thursday. We'll be bringing you loads of news about it all the way through, but we'll also talk through the rest of this week, I'm sure, about what David Davis has said and this ridiculous kind of chasing through the courts of Northern Ireland veterans from dozens of years ago that shouldn't be going on. It's 9:48.
Some breaking news this morning revealed that under the Terrorist Act, 242 people were arrested in the year to June of this year.
That's something you can indulge in as to all the people who aren't going to prison because, well, there's no prison spaces.
So this is a talk exclusive we've been looking at.
I said, you take these cuffs off me and speak to me like a human being rather than a common criminal.
You're just left wondering, does these people who lead us actually hate Britain?
Yeah.
Do they not love our country and everything that we've stood for?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham, 9:51. This from Chris in London. It's very nice. Talk Radio is hands down the best radio station in the UK. You're the best of the best. I wouldn't ever own an EV. Cost, depreciation, insurance cost, range, fire risk. But there is no problem with a small trench across my footpath. It needs to be large enough for an 18mm diameter cable, i.e. tiny. The problem is the power supply. If everyone is charging with a home charger, the local transformer would have to be upgraded. Yeah, or maybe it would just burst into flames like the one at Heathrow did. And Nan in Wales said, after just picking myself up off the floor laughing, what's this guy on? The installation for only £850. I can't afford to pay my electricity bill right now. Sorry. Yeah, this was the guy, Michael Golden, the co-founder of Turbocharge, who we spoke to a little bit earlier on in the show. Let's have a listen to him explaining how great it is to get yourself a cross-pavement gully. Certainly most people I spoke to yesterday said that, you know, if they live in a street where, you know, there's quite a lot of cars, they very rarely, if ever, are actually anywhere near their house.
Well, yeah, so we completed a survey quite recently of everybody that has one of our products installed, and 80% said that most of the time they were able to make it work for them every week.
Right.
And on the times that it wasn't possible, then they could still use a public charge point, or they would maybe ask their neighbour to move if they wouldn't mind moving.
And how much? If I said,
way to make it work.
If I said to you I wanted you to build me one of these, how much does it cost?
So the installed price is set by the local authority.
But do we pay them or do we pay you?
It varies. So we do offer a managed service to councils where residents can pay us, or other councils install it themselves, and then you pay the council.
Right.
And the price is from £999 fully installed.
From?
Yes. So it varies a little bit by local authority. Right. It varies from about £999 to about £1,400.
Okay. And I mean, how disruptive is it to the street? I mean, what do you have to do? Do you have to close? But do you have to close the pavement when you put it in?
So the installation time is between 1 hour and 1.5 hours.
Okay.
So it's a very fast process. You do close the pavement for that time, but then once, as you see in the pictures here, it's a very discreet install once completed.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, that looks like it would take more than an hour and a half. I mean, I've watched people with drills digging the road.
Yes.
You know, that takes more than an hour and a half, surely.
Well, actually, we've got to the point now where it is very efficient. So you use a disc cutter to cut 2 parallel lines. You chisel out the material. The channel itself is only 30mm deep, and the width of the slot is only 50mm. Right. So it's a very shallow cut that you're preparing, and then we're using this modern gap sealant to put it in place. So, yeah, it really is that fast.
OK. I've got a question for you from Chris on a voice note. Have a listen.
Good morning, Mike. It's Chris in Northants here. Enjoying the show as always. Just on the EV gullies across the pavement, what happens when it snows? You've got to try and find your gully and clear it. And even worse, you charge overnight, and we've had snow in the night and then freezing conditions, and your cable's going to be actually frozen in place by rock hard snow. You're not going to be able to remove it.
That's what I haven't heard before. Yeah. Go on.
Sure. So on the days that there is sufficient snow to cover the pavement, which are relatively few in the UK per year, then what you would do in the morning is you would pour some boiling water, some hot water over the top to melt the snow. Then you can lift the lid and
use sounds a bit dodgy.
No, I think you when you're removing snow or ice from your windscreen, you'll typically pour hot water over that.
No, they tell you to pour cold water over it, not hot water, because it cracks the windscreen.
Yeah, well, I've been.
You certainly don't use boiling water.
So some hot water over the top, melt the snow, and then you can lift the lid and put the cable in.
Okay. And what about Turbocharge? How well are you doing? How much money did you make last year?
Well, we're making good progress. So we're live with 30 local authorities in the UK, and a further 20 have confirmed.
So you're going to get 25 million quid out of this deal then?
Not us, no. That will certainly not be going to us. That pays for our product, but also needs to pay for the installation. Some of that is also paid as a license fee to the local authorities to cover their administrative time. And there are other providers as well.
That was Michael Golden, co-founder of Turbocharge, who seems to think it's all right to pour boiling water over some electric cables if they're covered in snow in the street. Apart from the fact that would create a lot of black ice, as people have pointed out, which people would then slip on, it doesn't sound that safe, does it? When you're dealing with high voltage electricity, which is coming out of your own home. Did they cut through your water pipe whilst installing a gully for your new electric car, says Stephen Ipswich? No. Well, of course, I don't live in a house, I live in a flat. So, you know, unless they can take the old the gully up 3 flights of stairs and down into the pavement and then round the corner into where I park my car, I think I've got no chance. As stated by an earlier contributor, says Tina, you needed to buy a second car due to work. If you need to charge 2 cars overnight, well, you have enough time, or we have to go out during the night to switch the plug to the other car. Well, again, it's a very good question. Jay from Bradford, never mind grants to install gullies on pavements. What about sorting out the pavements to start with? Some places, disabled people almost need off-road mobility scooters just to get out. Well, that's the other thing. You know, you've got those trees that push the pavement up. What do you do about that? Or the roots that might interfere with your gully. You know, there are a million questions that we still don't have any answers to. Let's get a voice note from Mark.
Morning, Mike. It's Mark in Lancashire. These gully things sound like an absolute scam to me. Most of that charge will be council admin because to cut a slot in across a pavement with a still saw is going to take minutes. Within months, these things are going to start falling apart and look terrible. The steel that's set into the concrete pavement will warp, it will expand at a different rate than the concrete around it. You'll get water down the side of it, which will freeze, and it'll work just like it does with a pothole, where it breaks up. The pavement around it will start to break up, then it'll start to pop out. The council won't want to come out and maintain it, so you're going to have a right mess outside your door that people trip over, local people complain about, and it's going to be absolute chaos. These things are just going to ruin the pavement, and I just wouldn't have one. Don't have one.
I mean, I'll tell you what, I've never seen so much opposition to something that's come out of the government for quite a while. Let's get a final voice note before we say hello to Julia from Joanne on working people.
Morning, Mike. Joanne from Norfolk. So, this issue regarding the term working person, there's an easy answer to that one. Just use the term employed. Full-time employee, part-time employee. When you fill in most forms, insurance, mortgage, etc., they ask you, what's your occupation? And they're usually the actual answers that they give you to sign off on. Employed, part-time, full-time. I think this is all just a way to divide people, because it's always better to go, oh, look, those over there are earning so much more than you over there.
Yeah, it's all a bit weird. Julie Hartley-Brewer's here.
Hello.
Hello.
I love your obsession with the gullies. Kind of thing is like, we own a car, right, which we barely use, but we live in a block, a converted block, as all the houses in my street. The chances of parking my car